Okay, we're live.
Yay!
Finally, we're going to do a stream today with only either half Asians or fathers of half Asians, because I keep hearing about all these things about the white ethnostate. So I think it's time to talk about the Hapa Ethnostate.
Yeah, I want to show how racist we are.
Racist we are. So obviously, well, if you've seen our channel before, I'm Nicolette. And
I'm Shane. I'm the guy of the group.
Yay!
Okay, so yeah, I'm going to have all of our guests introduce themselves, and I'm going to start with, to us at least, from our order. I want to start with Connor's on the left, the far left, so go ahead.
All right, yeah. My name's Connor Blazing, but most people just call me Blazing. I live in Seoul, Korea. I'm married to a Korean woman, and I have a daughter who is a Hapa. So I'm, what was that? Oh.
I think that was outside my house.
So,
some lightning.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I've been living in Korea for about, oh gosh, 2.5, almost 3 years now. And yeah, that's who I am. Oh, and my opinions do not reflect my my professional life.
All right, good. Get that out of the way.
Good disclaimer.
Yeah. So it looks like one. I guess I don't know if they did it on purpose or not, but it looks like one of our guests left. But I'm sure they'll come back soon.
Probably internet problem.
Yeah. So I want to go ahead and let Larson go next. So introduce yourself.
All right. Hi, I'm Larson Halleck. I am a Eurasian. I actually don't care for the term Hapa. I apologize if that offends some people. Because just I noticed that shitty people call themselves Hapas. No offense, guys. But anyway,
Yeah.
At my website, thebarbaricgentleman.com. Some of you, most of you probably know me if you read Return of Kings. I have a weekly column. It used to be about fitness and nutrition, but now I just write about a lot of different things. I'm also a YouTuber. I work as a personal trainer. I live in the Dirty Jers, New Jersey.
Oh my gosh.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I am also a martial arts instructor. I've also worked as a music teacher, and I've written a book. You should all buy it.
I think I have a copy, actually.
Yes, I gave it to you for free.
Yep.
Nice.
Yes, too. Yeah, I would recommend it.
So yeah. So I'm gonna let Amos start since now he's on the far left of the group. So go ahead and introduce yourself.
Shit, I'm on the far left.
Yeah, far left. I know, right?
Oh.
Are we just doing like a basic introduction?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, my name is Amos Joseph. I just woke up from a nap. I run the my channel, Amos Joseph, and also I do the semi-weekly stream with my friend Brooke Potter. We do the Shitlord Preachers podcast. So that's it.
All right, it's cool. Thanks for joining us. I'm going to let Jimmy Hapa go now.
No, that literally was just my boyfriend just said you should go by that name, and I thought, okay. Yeah, I know Petite Nikoko through Real Peel Eater.
Yes.
We were attacked by the R Hapas, right? So that's how I know everybody here.
Yeah, I've also tangled with them a lot.
I have a long history as well.
Yeah.
If I may interject for a second, when I said that most people who call themselves Hapas are just pieces of shit, that's who I'm thinking of predominantly.
Yeah.
Now I'm sorry, I won't interrupt anymore.
No, they're fine.
We're gonna reclaim the word.
Yeah. But yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, go ahead and introduce yourself to the group and everyone else watching.
Oh yeah. I'm Forgotten Nationalist on Twitter, and I'm half Vietnamese and half white. My dad is a Vietnam vet, and my mother is Vietnamese. They met during the war, and he did the right thing. He married her, and I was born in California, and they divorced when I was young, and I was raised by him. He got custody of me, so I was raised by my white half of my family. So that's why I have a lot of gratitude towards white people, and I really don't have any problem with a white majority in the U.S.
Yeah, kind of something. My upbringing, my mom and dad, my birth mom and dad, they divorced when I was young, and my dad basically was the one that raised me with my stepmom. So yeah, kind of the same. Yeah.
Okay. And
yeah. So Pat, you're next. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Mister.
So, my name is Pat, and Hapas are the best, quite frankly, because of our skin color. It's just superior.
Yeah. Yes.
That took a dangerous turn very quickly.
Those sarcasm people, look it up. I'm half Lao, half Welsh, I guess. Mom was in Laos for the Vietnam War, fled here under a terrible communist regime, so I just hate commies like you wouldn't believe. Dad was in the military, but he didn't do anything in the war. So, and then yeah, grew up here, lower middle class, white family, just a normal.
Yeah,
guy.
that sounds like me. Yeah. Yeah, my family was a family of lumberjacks, truckers, and soldiers. White trash, basically.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, thanks. And now go to Pill Eater. Go ahead and introduce yourself to the group. Everyone watching.
Hey guys. So my name is Pill Eater. I originally debuted on the internet, I believe, around November of 2016. For a long time, I was a YTMD user, which is like an old school like troll website, and it was pretty much just shit. Yeah, it was pretty much just shit posting. And during my time, I was at Temple University in Philadelphia for Asian Studies. I studied Japanese for a bit, but more importantly, I always was an artist. I was always into music, into creating zines and things like that. My band is Steven Universe, and not Steven Universe, but I release cassette tapes and sell them and stuff. But more importantly, I started to blog about Asian interests probably around 2016 when I discovered, the Hapa Reddit and the whole SJW background. I mean, I was really interested, and still am. I know actual IRL white nationalists and people in the alt-right, and their stubbornness when it comes to race relationships and, how things are, they have to be ultimately 1488. And there's no, they believe in ethnostates where there's one race, but they don't believe in bicultural ethnostates where, you can have white and Asian and things like that. So, in a way, I started a project called www.asianarianism.com, which is kind of like what you guys are doing now, Hapa Supremacy. And the purpose of the website was just pretty much my personal blog and to deal with basically the Hapa Reddit. I blogged for about a year. Recently, I took down the website and I reorganized myself as www.pilleater.com, and I gathered all my thoughts about a Hapa ethnostate into my new book, which is in its proofreading stage, called A Manifesto About Stalking Patrick Hyland. It's a very interesting. It's a very interesting book. It has a very good front cover. I sold some copies last night. Usually I go to punk shows, and one Asian band that was playing there, I sell them like for $5. It's I'm kind of just in this like kind of urban hip scene. So it's just to get my book out there, and I have a lot of IRL connections, but this ideal of a Eurasian ethnostate or Eurasian identity has always fascinated me. From my racial background, my mom is partially Kazakhstanian, and for some time I would used to lie on the internet and say, "Oh, I'm a Hapa," and everyone would believe me. But I honestly think I'm just a white person with some quarter Asian interest, and just like a lot of white millennials interested in Asian culture. whether that mean anime, video games, Chinese food, whatever. It seems to be an important issue to talk about. I think also half Asians are the best is because, well, for starters, there's a lot more of them coming out, and a lot of the upper class and the intellectual elite are Eurasian. And it's just the thing is there's no identity for it yet. There's no words and meanings. And I think programs like this is, if you want to use the word in the correct term, progressive, because at least there's a talk about a bicultural ethno-nationalism. I don't know, or at least some sentiment of anti-liberal or anti-SJW. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's great. I know that you and I, and also with her as well, you interviewed us.
Oh yeah, when I used to have Radio Asian Aryan, but because the program was such a shock jock program, SoundCloud took it down. I lost those files, and did I find months later that I found backups on a USB stick, and I uploaded it on my YouTube channel as some obscure. I didn't label it interviewing Shane or Nico, but it's just on the Mega series. I think it's like 6 or 7. But again, I found your interviews again, including Forgotten Nationalists first one, so it's up on my channel now.
Awesome. Well, that's awesome. So yeah, thanks for that. And Leaf, last but not least.
Hello, I am the Leaf. I would tell you my Twitter, but I got fucking banned from Twitter, and I don't feel like shilling my new one because I'm probably gonna get banned again.
Was it like the 4th time now or something?
Actually, it's my first time being permanently suspended. That was my main account, and it went away because some fucking Australian Twitter whore decided to report the tweet. I hope she fucking never gets a healthy relationship. I mean, whores tend not to, but
how dare you? How dare you?
No, for why
Come on,
in this stream, I am my mom's Japanese, and my dad is like a European mix. I don't see my dad. I was raised by the Asian half of my family, but I'm still okay with parts of the U.S. becoming majority white because, let's face it, majority of the crime is committed by non-whites. Violent crime.
Yes.
How dare you say that?
Come on, how dare you?
Hey, I'm not.
How dare you say that?
Statistics.
Racist. Racist.
And pretend that you know that like it's not an ongoing issue in America land, you know, the crime rates, the violent crime rates that nobody seems to address. I mean, they'll address the school shootings, but then that doesn't even really make up a large percentage of the gun crime in the States. So, you know. I am also here to say that furries will not be welcome in the ethnostate. They are banned, and if you sneak into the ethnostate and we find out you are a furry, you will be gassed.
Well, I guess in that respect, we're ahead of the right stuff. Since isn't one of their moderators like a furry and also like a pedo?
Yes, it's true. Yeah, I think it's weird. I think we've found that out, and it's weird. The Discord scene. A lot of them are weirdos. Trigger bait, especially on Baked Alaskas. They're just out there. They're fortunate people. I don't deal with them.
I mean, it's a shame to me because TRS they had some good articles, but they're just such pieces of shit. Like I can't read them anymore.
I mean, Mike Nenock's a good guy. It's just he's not. It's hard to associate with TRS. They just went into Chan culture and now it's exploded in his face. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I grew up in Minnesota. So like I grew up in like the whitest white. I grew up in Minnesota.
I'm in Minnesota.
Oh really? That's amazing. I had no idea.
People live there.
I know, right?
I thought it was white people and Hmong people. So yeah, I grew up in Minnesota. Yeah.
No, I was just saying, one of my best friends lives in Minnesota, and they're picture perfect white family, and they're.
Why does it sound like Minnesotans are like black people? I'm friends with Minnesotans.
My crazy mom lives in Minnesota.
Yeah, we have either the second highest or highest population of Hmong in the States, but for some reason they just chose Minnesota, which is the oddest thing to do. It's freezing, and no, I grew up in Minnesota, very very small town, white, like rural area. I think there was one black kid in my entire school, and he was adopted by a white family. So, so it was like, so yeah, I grew up in a very like monolithic culture. So I never had an opportunity to interact with Asian culture at all until one day I got bored and decided to move to Korea. And
you
that's
just
where
got bored one day, and yeah, I'm bored. I'm gonna go move to South
Well, I tried to go to Japan, but
You know, most people, when they get bored, they don't do something that extreme.
Wow.
Well, I felt like my life was kind of like at a standstill. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to do something a little crazy. So I moved, met my wife, got married, and now we have a beautiful 1.5-year-old daughter.
Aw.
yeah, that's
I
great.
have a 4-month-old.
Well,
Nice.
if I could quickly add, since I realized everyone was sharing what makes them Hapa, I am actually half my dad's side. He is the white racist fetishist. No, Polish back on his side is Polish from Minnesota here. So I was actually born here in the U.S. And then when I was about 5, I actually lived in Taiwan. That's where my mother is from. Grew up there until about 2005. Came back here. So I guess I am the. I don't know. Am I the most Hapa because I still speak the other language? Does anyone here speak their mother tongue?
I don't know if there's
my
possibly
mother's
more
from-
Hapa than anybody.
I mean, my mom's from Taiwan. I mean, I speak some Chinese. I'm not fluent.
Yeah, elementary Japanese, like big boku wa josan desu, but yeah.
English, 100% English.
American.
So,
I'm American.
so nobody else speaks their Asian language, or?
I'm learning Korean.
Lao would get me absolutely nowhere in life. So no.
There you go.
Despite being raised by the Asian half of my family, the only person who spoke Japanese like fluently when she was here was my great grandma, and she passed away. And now the relatives I have that live in Japan stay in Japan, and the other ones are scattered across Canada, and like we don't really see each other anymore. So like she was literally like the only one that was keeping the family kind of seeing each other. And now like I don't know, I don't even pay attention to all who's not talking to who, or there's so much drama.
Jeez.
You think
You're just
that's
full
so
of drama.
catty.
What's going on? Your whole.
I would have liked my mother to have talked to me in Vietnamese, but it was during a time when everyone was expected to assimilate.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
it was different times
Right.
back then. You know, it's like learn the language, and I still think that that's fine. Learn the national language is English. You know.
Yep. I definitely think that English should be the primary language, but interestingly, I went to college for history, and interestingly, the U.S., the second most spoken language in the U.S. used to be German. Everyone used to teach their kids German, and then after World War I and II, everyone was scared they'd be discriminated against if they were German, so they stopped teaching their kids their native tongue. So everyone
That's not
learned
right.
English,
Yeah.
but they just got scared.
Nothing wrong with bilingualism. Definitely nothing wrong with bilingualism.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
So one of the questions, because I looked at this tag that's going around YouTube. It's called the mixed person tag, and I thought some of these questions were interesting. Because I always have this problem. I don't know about you guys, but have you ever been, what ethnicities have you been mistaken for?
Chinese.
Aboriginal.
I
Aboriginal and one time Mexican.
Yeah, I've been mistaken for
Here's
Mexican.
the
You gotta look Mexican. What retarded person said?
Well, no. If you say something like special, like you're half Chinese or half Japanese, in a room full of white people, and you act white, you're going to be the best attention-seeking person in the progressive stacking room. It's kind of what's hip today. So you can actually use your partial or even half racial identity to an extreme advantage today. And whites will gravitate to it.
I've gotten in Mexican and Chinese before.
Yeah, that's definitely her.
Mainly
In the
Mexican.
summertime, I got a suntan going I look more Mexican, I guess.
I mean, my one girlfriend in college, she was a Huli, a Chinese Jamaican, and you know,
that was a thing.
Yeah, Huli, the Chinese in Jamaica, and they're they're also elite. Probably, if we can, you might want to talk about eugenics because it's like, okay, a Chinese Jamaican has a more higher IQ than an actual Jamaican, and therefore but at the same time, Jamaicans don't like them, and so they're discriminated. But at the same time, you know, my one girlfriend, she also went to Penn, so duh, she's very, very smart, but we're still friends. But exactly, if you're Huli, you know, Jamaican Chinese, you're different from everyone else, and now every white person wants to be your friend. So,
yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one, but I've gotten like Russian.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah, I could see that.
I've only gotten Thai.
No. This is the non-violent.
Oh, sorry. My
Yeah,
fault.
the only other thing I've been
Baby does not sound happy.
Yeah, I gotta go calm him down real quick.
Okay.
He likes dad at 8 o'clock.
Oh.
Yeah, people pretty frequently they assume I'm some kind of like swarthy white person, like a Greek or an Italian, some Dago.
I mean,
Are Italians? Can Italians even be considered white anymore?
Well,
I thought they were.
I don't know. According to Tariq Nasheed, Asians are considered white, where we
What?
thrive under.
That's
Yeah,
true. It's now there's a white and Asian.
Okay, so
During his debate,
That
who the
debate
fuck was
between
Jared
Tariq
Taylor?
and Jared Taylor.
Yeah, his debate with Jared Taylor. He
We're
was
reserved
claiming
white.
that
We're reserved white.
I guess we're like the Jews we used to be, like a race that was so successful we might as well be. Might as well become the new white.
it's stupid. Like, it basically to turn the sheet. Anyone who's not dark, anyone who's not like dark like him, is equal.
What about Sean
That's
King?
right, Shane.
Hey,
Sean King's a completely different entity. So
Hey, well, you Asians just want to be more white, so.
I think there's no doubt about it that there
you know,
seems to be now that whites and
like
Asians
that,
are the
reserved white.
power structure people. So
we was Changs and shit.
it was white.
Oh, look.
yeah, I mean that gives you more of a reason why whites and Asians are going to be prosecuted as the power structure race against the lower. I don't know. It's just really weird.
Yeah, like
that seems to be really popular now.
I used to be a substitute teacher in like just pieces of like Trenton and Camden, places like that. And my dad was also was a full-time tenured teacher, and I've been there. And like black people don't like Asian people.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I've noticed. Go ahead.
No offense to any Afro-Asian institution. Just saying. I mean, I strongly believe in Afro-Asianism, but they have to do their own thing. I'm just saying
like
that.
Tiger Woods.
Yeah, he's got to do it. And Jiro and Billy Blanks, they got to do their own thing.
Yeah.
What's that?
I agree with you, Pillator.
Yeah, it's just the Afro-Asians have to have like Afroasianism.com or some at least force. And I think Huli, that's what I've experienced. Huli people seem to have it in Paris. But for people like Tiger Woods, Billy Blanks, and Jiro, it's scattered. And you could be talking about certain types of blacks and certain types of. Well, I seem to see that Southeast Asian goes along well with black.
See, we call them Blasian.
Yeah, Blasian.
Yeah.
Blasian's very but yeah, it's weird. I can't really speak on Blasian culture. I only knew like 2 people, but they seemed to be very intellectual and very calm. That's basically what I call it.
Really?
Yeah, that's what I experienced.
There's not like, well, what if you were like Hmong and black? Would you be like double gangster or something?
Well,
Well,
Hmong is more like Hmong is more like like Jewish. It's more of a culture than ethnicity.
I wrote a
that's pretty true.
Yeah, I wrote a parody article about blacks and Eurasians, and I said that there's always this theory that supposedly, well, if you're Blasian, you must be hood into rap, and it's not true. I mean, it's just like, yeah, you have some maybe African American or some African blood, but that doesn't associate being like the globalized African thing. It has to be this. Like it's somewhere between Southeast Asian and African mixed with this modern thing. But again, the numbers are very scarce. There's much more larger Eurasians than there are Blasians. So, and I'm a strong advocate of, a lot of people say, and that you might hear a goofy multiculturalist or SJW say this, well, everyone's going to race mix and there will be a brown Egyptian people. Ooh. And that completely goes against human biodiversity. And I'm a pro HBD advocate. I think that's terrible if you try to force people along together. So everyone has to have their own boundaries. It's basically biculturalism, not multiculturalism. And that
anybody who thinks that, we're just going to race mix and be this wonderful, brown, like, goblin culture. I mean,
the Kalergi plan.
Yeah, you can just look at Latin America and see how much that's not happening.
It's basically a fantasy white liberals have to make other non-whites shut up, pretty much. And while whites take other people's things and, off it, whatever.
My biggest struggle with being married to an Asian woman is I'm often accused of just marrying them for fetishization. I didn't marry her because I loved her. I don't love my daughter. I just love the way they look. And
that's one of our Hapa's like biggest things about the white male Asian female. Are you just marrying our Asian women because you fantasize about them and they're your fetish? Like,
one of the biggest fallacies in like white nationalist arguments is that white nationalists will use Hapa Reddit viewpoints. Yet at the same time, white nationalists will fetishize over their white women as the Aryan white women in the field or something like that, and say, white women, I can only care about them because that's the master race, blonde hair, blue eye. And it's not, that's not fetishization. So you can see why it's goofy and people only think in terms of the material and not, true love or the accent. It's but you can see the fallacy right there.
Yeah, they like the blonde hair and the blue eyes and all that. I don't think they go out of the way to make sure that's still going by having sex with an Asian woman.
Hey. Watch it there, Shane. Watch how your hand placement is there. You gotta watch it.
I don't care.
To be fair,
like nowadays, like being called a Nazi and a racist, it's like okay, and like what else you got? Like that doesn't
I'm trying to crack a joke there, Shane. I mean, you see the hat I'm wearing.
No, I know you are, but that's the whole point, though. It's now a joke. It's a joke now. It's not like, oh my god, I don't care.
Yeah.
No, it's like
it's funny. Yeah, it's funny. My daughter, she turned out with green eyes and red hair. So.
What? I've heard of that before.
It sounds like someone from like some anime. Was it Neon Evangelion or something?
Yeah.
Actually, I'm told that in Central Asia, like it's actually fairly common for red hair, not so much green eyes.
Yeah, green eyes is almost impossible genetically.
There was a dude in who used to be in Big Alaska server. He got banned. He flipped out on me one day. You're lying about being a Hapa. You have red hair.
Oh yeah, I got banned too for doing the thing. So,
that's hair dye, my dude. That's after explaining to him that it was me dyeing my hair, he flips out again. You're faking it. You're not a real Hapa. Hapa just don't have real red hair. I was like,
you don't have real hair.
But it's hair dye. He was so stupid. He also butchered the language of pigeon, which I don't know how you can get pigeon wrong because it's
isn't it butchered
pigeon
like, in general?
But he's the way he spelled Hapa was HAPA', and he's like, that's how you actually spell it.
Hapa.
Actually, you use Asian characters.
That is such a cute baby. I just want to look at the baby. I just want to look at the baby.
Well, see, the thing about like this whole like fetishization thing, I mean, yeah, there is like a minority of these like white spurgs who are like, oh my god, like, oh, lotus blossom.
And that number is growing.
It's a tiny minority. Like, I don't think
I think it's people like that. Look, people just discriminate and choose their mate like that. My older brother, he's into hardcore punk, and what do you think his girlfriend is? Some goth girl into punk rock. That was a discriminatory choice. If you're some like white nerd who's like into anime and video games, yeah, you'll probably choose a Chinese American girl because it reminds you of some IRL anime character or something like that. And the same with people who are like into certain fashion sense or the ideal that you're looking for a certain ideology as a lifestyle choice. I don't know. It's a very interesting thing that today people can literally discriminate their partners based upon materialistic choices, and that's what the Hapa Reddit assumes, that there's fetishizing and they're choosing the wrong choice. And this is just like Larson said, the evil people are just smaller.
Wouldn't it make sense though, as a Hapa person, that you would want to probably date a Hapa person, not just because they're probably the most they look the most like you, and probably because of like just the cultural nonsense you went through of being between two cultures, they would probably be the most compatible with you.
That's absolutely right.
It's not just fetishizing. Because they're.
It's a natural prefer like someone like yourself. That's exactly right. The whole bicultural, like white nationalists will again argue and say, well, if you're mixed race, you have to choose a side, white or Asian. You can't, it's either red or blue, but it's never purple. And that's exactly what I advocate for, is the purple side. It's okay.
I kind of meet very few like white nationalists and alt-righters that actually think like that. Most are really cool with Asians, and I don't know if it's because they just love Asians, or
they're all Asianarian, as I used to say.
But no, but like most of the I mean, there's some of the Nazi LARPers and stuff that the alt-right doesn't really like, but most of them say that as long as you share our beliefs, as long as you're not like gonna like be stupid and commit a bunch of crime, and you're willing to assimilate into our culture and stuff, we're okay with you in our ethno state. We still want it majority white, but as long as you're not like going around like shooting people and raping them, like you're probably going to be welcome in.
We're the model minority.
Yep.
Eventually, that'll just create a neo-Nazi Chinatown, a Chinatown and neo-Nazi line.
Chinatown. That's
oh my god!
And eventually,
everybody's like giving the Nazi salute while giving you fortune cookies.
That's what, if you imagine like the Man in the High Castle or something like that, something more of an ideal.
I'm gonna shot somebody.
But the whole ideal is that if everyone's doing ethnostates based upon self-shoe theory preference, then obviously, eventually, that bridge, the Chinatown and neo-Nazi land, will be a Hapa ethnostate or a bicultural. It's like a post-libertarian ideal of, well, if your wife's Chinese, you can go over there. It's a humane way or something, like that. It all makes sense.
The thing about talking about like this whole sexual relations thing and like the possible fetishization, I've really always argued that the sole problem with Hapas and really like angry Asian SJWs on the whole is just you're not getting laid, especially with the men. And like if they were just getting their dicks wet, honestly, like there would be no really conflict between white and Asian people. And I speak from experience because I was, as I've detailed on my website, I was like an SJW until I started having sex on the regular. And I was like, wow, I really don't have any reason to hate white people. I hate, my white side of my family. And that's
sex
exactly what my books about. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm the same way too.
SJW, okay.
I just, once you get a girlfriend, you have responsibilities to be an adult. And I don't think a lot of SJWs understand that because they want to be immature and rely on people, and gives me that. So
yeah, wait till you have a kid.
Yeah, mainstream, Asian websites. It's just every goddamn article. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, Mickey Rooney, yeah, like Yellowface. I get it. Please.
They get really esoteric. Like they assume, like, okay, so I was on this guy's YouTube channel. I think his name was Angel Dodger. He's kind of like this Blasian guy, but he's really sympathetic to the Hapa Reddit. And he's like, there's evil people like John Derbyshire with a Chinese wife. And I'm like, John Derbyshire isn't that much of an influence in the alt-right. And yet they'll point out these things. But I don't know why. It's like saying Jared Taylor speaks fluent Japanese, but it's just such a minor thing. It's just like, well, yeah, does that mean he has this world plan to create a fetishist army to, I don't know. It's this really weird convolution argument, and I put the whole Hapa Reddit under a bridge now. I don't even think about them anymore. So,
I mean, I never really thought about them. I didn't even know there was like this like contingent of just sniveling bitch Hapas until they.
Well, the guy's corrupt.
They started whining about. They posted links to my website. And like, look at this asshole. Like he tries to act like he's all man.
At least I did a podcast with him. Yeah, at least I did a podcast with him. And he's a very disturbed individual. So
they sound like a bunch of like angsty teenagers who their parents didn't love them enough. So
exactly.
No, I would say it's just one guy orchestrating it and his friends. And this one guy was having, it sounds like it's internet drama. He was having a relationship with this Greek woman who I did have a podcast with. I even forget her. name right now.
It's Eurasian tiger, right?
Persephone.
Yeah, Eurasian tiger.
Persephone.
Yeah, Persephone, she actually messaged me on YouTube the other day. She said, she's like, I'm sorry about, you were right about Eurasian tiger all along, what you've been saying about him.
Yeah, she said the same thing. I just ignore him, like, whatever. I mean, you're a smart person. You speak Greek, Korean, and whatever, but I don't know why you're hanging out. I don't know. That's her issue. I don't like getting internet drama, but I'm just saying, Reddit culture universally produces that. Just saying.
Well, judging from soap opera shows growing up, the Asian soap operas are so much more crazier than white people American soap operas. We have basically drama ingrained in our DNA.
Asian
soap
operas are freaking insane.
Yeah,
am I wrong?
The Korean dramas I hear.
The only ones that I know in terms of the Asian dramas, whenever someone gets kissed, it's the biggest thing ever. Like, oh my god, who got kissed? Oh my god,
that's Korean.
Oh, okay.
It's always like one big kiss in the entire show, and then it's just that's it. So it's like a huge ass build up for 20 episodes.
They block it.
Yeah, they block it behind cotton candy.
Yeah.
And after that, they're just extremely awkward with each other.
Yeah.
So, when you guys were growing up, what kind of challenges did you have growing up? Because you look different. Yeah. Because obviously you're Asian. Why are your eyes like this? And you eat dog, that kind of thing.
I don't really have any
not being
specific
Asian enough for the Asians, but not being white enough for the whites.
Yeah.
I did get fights and stuff, but it wasn't really racist. It was just kind of just me being a nerd. I never really had any racist bullying per se.
When I was in junior high, I was in vocal jazz, and everybody else was Filipino. I stood out because I'm more light. I have really light skin compared to a lot of Hapas and a lot of Asians, so I stood out a lot. I was the only one in that group that was really had really light skin, and so that people pointed that out. Why are you in vocal jazz? You stand out so much. It was well, because I like it. I'm not gonna quit just because I'm not the same skin color as everybody else. That's retarded. But I also still was not white enough for the white people. I've been called a mixed race mutt. I've just
sounds about right. Yeah.
I've experienced horrible.
You know when you kind of look white, but then people look at you and they're like, wait, you have features that aren't typically white features, huh?
Go ahead, Pat. Go ahead.
I've experienced horrible racism growing up. So I grew up in the Midwest. My mother literally was the first Asian in a town of 150,000. In the mid-1990s, when I was going to school, the federal government stepped into our school system to desegregate it. So what happened was all the white kids were going to one school, all the black kids were going to another school, and they mandated that each school had to have equal diversity quotas. Well, my school had my town had 0.2% Asians in the population, so we outspread real thin. And the school I was going to, I wouldn't really fit in with any racial groups because basically whenever they segregated all the schools, they just taught the kids that race was the most important thing. And so everybody formed racial gangs. So I kind of floated around in between them. And it got to the point where we would have a substitute teacher and she would come in and she would call my name on the roster. My name is Patrick Sullivan. It's an Asian, or it's not an Asian name, it's an Irish name. And when I would raise my hand, she would look at me and say, "No, you're not Patrick Sullivan. Stop fooling around." And I got detention from her.
Oh my god!
Because I didn't look like my name.
Just because the teacher thought you were fucking around, hey, you're not Patrick Sullivan. You're not. Come on.
Exactly.
Yeah, I have a white name too.
That
Wow.
It's really weird because most white people will assume, especially the model minority Asians are white like them, or at least there's that Oreo, the black kid with a white mother or a white dad, and he acts white. Anybody who has more non-white interests, there's going to be more segregation. But white people interesting with their relationships now with Eurasians or Asians. Most Asian Americans, if you want to put that, from when I was in high school, I went to a very private high school. The Eurasian Asian guys were pretty much, into STEM, science, technology, engineering, math, and behind computers and doing really smart stuff and trying to get into like MIT. While the Eurasian or Asian girls, from what I've understood, they were already getting white boyfriends and interested in Harry Potter and Disney and basically.
Oh, disgusting.
Well, I don't know. It's preference. I mean, another thing, to be liked by a white person, you have to like indie rock or alternative rock, and that is like the main. I don't know why. I just think that's a common Asian Americana thing. But being in that private school environment, you understand that high IQ people go with other high IQ people, which just happens to be whites and Asians, or at least whites thinking Asians are whites, but they have Asian skin, but they're too afraid to put out the racial difference. While Asians at the same time tend to think in terms of this weird, assuming this is all, I believe it was mostly Chinese Americans, assuming it's a Confucius nature and that, the highest authority there is I want to be modern. I want to be white like them. So it's this weird synergy from what I examine. And it just wasn't an issue from, I don't know, probably because white liberals tend to not bring up the issue and they're afraid to bring up the issue. And if everybody's in that harmony, well, nobody cares. But again, if you're in a public education system where there's like all these races, Black, Mexican, Indian.
Yeah, they're afraid to bring up the issue because they'll bring out the racism in them.
Oh yeah, and money income too.
Yeah.
With money. So
from my observation on when I went to school is that liberals, they want diversity. They want to shove everyone together and then pretend like there's not going to be any issues. While conservatives, on the other hand, take the opposite point of view where they're like, differences don't matter. We're all individuals. There's no culture. There's nothing like this. And both sides get it wrong on the different side of the coin. They both get it wrong on both ends. So.
Well, the thing I've noticed with liberals is that they want diversity. It's like a very specific kind of diversity. If you ask them, what benefits does multiculturalism have? It's always just, the restaurants. They want like. They want this sort of like nice diversity where you can go and get some ethnic food and maybe bang like a hot brown girl and have a maid and like that's big.
Dude, yeah. I still see restaurants, with signs that say we have the right to refuse service to anyone we feel. Bless you.
Bless you.
And, I mean, that's just. And what's funny though about that? Of the times I've seen that type of sign, we refuse the right to give service to anyone. It's been always Asian restaurants,
especially Korean, from what I've seen in New York City.
Yes, Koreans are pretty. They like to shut themselves off. They definitely don't like intermixing. And if you suggest that they have Japanese blood in them, you are asking for a fight. You are asking for a
Japanese and Koreans hate each other.
Chinese people react the same way. If you think they're Japanese and if you think Japanese are Chinese, oh man.
Koreans are especially they like to shut their culture off from other cultures. I've noticed.
I had an Asian studies class where it talked about there's this Chinese girl talking about how she hated how other white peers would think she's Japanese because she's quote unquote Asian, because it seems to me that in white culture in America that, well, if you must be Asian, you must be into anime and Japanese culture. It's like this weird one-dimensional thing.
I mean,
a lot of whites
don't care as much if someone I've been called people have mistaken me for Chinese before. I was like, well, no. I mean,
yeah, especially on the East Coast, it's all Chinese. The Japanese are in California, and so it's
the Chinese have a history from World War II with the Japanese, and that's why they hate the Japanese because the Japanese government still won't acknowledge the war atrocities that they committed during World War II.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But yeah, there's a huge number of Chinese Americans and Chinese and they definitely make up the numbers of the ideal Asians. But again, whites tend to think the artistic culture is in Japan and in Japanese culture. And that's where the power, thing is. And that's where most white liberals get their kick from, They would choose more of the Japanese interest compared to, oh, your family's some strict Chinese Confucius family from it's just not appealing to most whites. It's
No,
weird.
and then also liberals, another thing they do is they always tend to think of Asian countries as this huge ideal, but they don't realize how conservative they are.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. When they meet your Confucius family, and then the white boyfriend comes and he eats before grandma, and then you're banned forever.
Confucius stay within the bloodline.
Yep.
Oh my
So
gosh!
you guys should know about the Koreans. I was here during the LA riots. You guys know about the LA riots?
Yeah,
In 1992.
Yeah.
And they were defending their properties, and they were bringing out their guns and defending their property.
Yep.
Very admirable.
Wasn't that in the news not too long ago? That shopkeeper that shot a person trying to rob him is going to jail for like 4 or 5 years now.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
Wow,
It was in California. Yeah, you should look it up. It's ridiculous. His wife was ridiculous. His wife was shot, and then she shot and killed the other guy, and then like a couple weeks later or a month later, another robbery was attempted, and this time he chased the guy out and shot him. And so they said because the guy was running away, he's going to jail.
Wow.
Yeah, from what I know,
it's ridiculous.
In Philadelphia, the Korean and African American communities do not like each other, and there's been a history of that. I do believe the Korean Kmart is like in the ghetto in Philly. I think it's I forget the street, but there's been some. That's well for a fact that during the LA riots, of course, I guess Koreans will retaliate against blacks if they find their behavior, irresponsible.
I learned about Koreans and blacks not liking each other from the television show Lost. Because Michael Dawson and the Kims were, they're Michael's like, the blacks don't like the Koreans don't like the blacks, all that stuff. Yeah,
it's weird. The only this might sound really strange. I've known 2 Korean girls that had black boyfriends, and I thought to myself, why is that? And I'm thinking, I don't know much.
Maybe they fell for the black dick myth.
I was just about to say that, but I'm glad that you said it instead.
No, you guys have no idea.
I know. Yeah. Fuck all that.
In Korea, Koreans, they believe every stereotype. So if it's in a movie or if it's in popular culture in America, they buy it. So for white people, they believe all the myths about white people. For black people, big dick, that is literally a stereotype.
And they believe it's authentic.
They believe it's authentic. That's why they also believe black culture is gangster. That's why they say all black people are gangsters.
I was actually watching a video about that, how some of them had watched Black Panther, and their initial
is to get a black boyfriend.
Black people are all thugs, and then they watch Black Panther, and it kind
of. But that's an authentic weird. If there's any Northeast Asian or an African American that shows you that, I think, from what I observed, Korean would be the most compatible over Southeast Asian. I don't know, because the second one would be Chinese, and then Japanese is just rare. Black male Japanese is incredibly rare.
When my wife came to America, because she was born in China and raised there, her mother told her not to date any black guys, because in China they view them all as gangsters, gangbangers, criminals. That's just because they don't have any black people there.
It's more advantageous. It's weird that Koreans will date and try out black male. I don't know if Koreans yet have.
It's not common by any means. Oh, okay. It's not common by any means. I'm just saying that it's mostly because black people don't come to Korea, but it's also the few times you'll see it is in the military. So there's a lot of military guys that come over here to Korea. So.
One of my workplaces, I knew a Korean gal, and she was all about the black guys.
Well, especially if you listen to a Margaret Chow skit, she'll probably at least make jokes about black men.
So speaking of black Asian relations, I'll just be saying.
So we're talking about stereotypes. What's the best Asian stereotype, and what's the worst Asian stereotype?
Best Asian stereotype is math.
No.
I think that's the worst. When I see numbers, when I was in school, I'm actually really bad at math because it looks like numbers are all jumbled on the page. So you're half Asian, you're supposed to be good at math. It's like, well, everything looks jumbled. Like, what am I supposed to do?
2 + 2 is 6.
Wrong.
Yeah, I would say
Yes.
that the best stereotype is like the
I'm
martial
bad
arts
at math,
master
too.
because that's paying my rent.
Okay, so then I don't feel so bad now because I'm also bad at math. Okay.
I'm awful
You
bad at
have a lot
math.
in common.
But
Well,
you
you're
guys
also
got
bad at math. What are you
Yeah, that's
talking
true. I'm
about?
terrible at math. You're right.
the stereotype
math
is
is.
actually the math stereotype came from first generation Asians who got an Asian education. So in Korean schools they go to school from 7 o'clock in the morning to 10 p.m. at night. My wife went to school for 16 hours in a day. So
Yeah, Taiwan schools are
Maybe
kind
it's a Chinese thing. Maybe Chinese are good at math.
I think
well, no,
I'm not.
it's been believed that because of the language.
I
the
think
way
the best Asian stereotype from what I've examined is, you know, for the guys, or maybe there's this ideal of being the sexy gentleman, you're very intelligent, high IQ, and you're like this, you know, you have all the best traits. And I guess for the women is you see this with Eurasian men a lot at the time. You know, that's the stereotype. They're like, oh, he's white and Asian. He must be some gentleman who's intelligent and suave. And, you know, he's not like a brute or anything.
What is it called?
And then, like, for women,
song.
it's the tiger mom attitude. I think that's the best Asian. You know, there was the hymn of the tiger mom. It's like if you have I mean,
my mom was a tiger mom.
Yeah, my girlfriend does this too, and she acts tiger mom, and I love it. And it's just a fun.
Now,
I don't know. I never really heard the
martial
stereotype
arts.
that Asian men are like. Wait, are these like sexy gentlemen? I've always heard that they're these like spastic.
And I was about to go on the worst
Yeah,
Asian
but this is like the
stereotype.
worst stereotype that I've familiar with.
Yeah, and I would say like the worst Asian stereotype. Well, this might go for all, but it's this idea of the strict fighter pilot that will die over failing one question it has to get he gets an A- and he has to kill himself. Maybe this is just something Japanese, but it seems to exist in Korea, China, and most of Asia. That if you do one little thing wrong that isn't precise, you're out of here. So if I have an interview with a bunch of Japanese and I don't bow, get out of here. You should just kill yourself.
the bad thing, I was going to say this about to the girl that's half Thai, is that I forget your name, but in Thailand, Korea, they think
I'm not half Thai.
Oh, okay. I thought you said that.
How dare you, Bill? How dare you?
I'm shaking for Thai. I'm half Vietnamese.
Oh, okay. Well, that's actually the stereotype rings true for both. So Koreans, they think that the Vietnamese and Thai people are prostitutes. Like, if you're a woman, you're a prostitute.
Oh yeah, that's a common like Vietnam.
Yeah, I've heard that. That's pretty common.
You know, I had a. I mean, unfortunately, I had this Vietnamese girlfriend a few months ago. She was really nice at first, but then she tell me all about her traumas and everything, and she literally fell under that Vietnamese hooker stereotype, and I just couldn't stand her verbal abuse and her kookiness, and I left her in favor of someone else. But again, it's like, yeah, I could see.
Was she full Vietnamese?
She was full Vietnamese, but more Americanized. And she told me she hated her mom and this, and she dyed her hair blue. She wanted to be, you know, the thought girl. She wanted to be the thought girl, too, and listen to all rap. And she wanted me to be some, like, MTV guy that will, like, pay her date. You know, she had these high and I just felt bad for her, you know? Like, I had sex with 12 men. I can't believe you only had sex once. And it's like, yeah.
That... You know, I know a girl who was like that and had been like that since 11, and she wasn't like Asian or anything, but that stemmed from, I think,
it's an American MTV culture thing.
Americanized. Not only that, I think she was sexually abused as a kid. I think.
Oh yeah, definitely. I could tell. Ivy was. She definitely had abuse on her mom's. I felt bad, but again, I let her do her own thing.
You can only put up with so much of that before you're just like, you know what?
I tried to be a good Christian guy. I'm just gonna move on. You want to be a Tinder slut? Go ahead.
So the best Asian stereotype is what?
Martial arts.
That sounds like a terrible.
No, I think the best.
How is that bad at all? I don't understand that.
Yeah, go on.
I think the best Asian stereotype is we have an advantage in soup eating competitions because our eyes are like this, so it's like for the splashes.
We're eating hot dogs like a motherfucker. We're gonna raw.
Yeah,
I was gonna take that out of context. Okay, you know what?
There's always one.
I hate to keep, telling people to buy my book, but I actually do mention briefly in the book, like, I don't understand how, like, the martial arts master stereotype is supposed to be bad. Like, oh no, we're stereotyped as these, like, badass, fighting men.
The Karate Kid.
Does anyone here?
All the stereotypes, though, I think Asians have the least worst stereotypes.
No, Asians are most militant. There's very huge militant.
Like, all the stereotypes we have aren't exactly, like, negative things, but if you look at the
Yeah, I
stereotypes
agree.
for, like, white people, it's, like, the trailer trash, and then the stereotypes against black people is...
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to say it. Cause
I agree with Leaf.
So the worst stereotype.
Oh, this is easy. This is easy.
Bad drivers.
The worst stereotype.
Bad drivers.
The word, yes, micro penis for men.
I was gonna say right here.
What's up?
Guys.
Guys,
Inches.
yeah.
Both inches. Okay.
Oh my God. But what?
I don't even know. What?
I mean, yeah, the fighter pilot.
Yeah, the fighter pilot.
Well, it's funny. I think the bad driving is sexy. I don't know why. I just think it's like maybe I've had girlfriends who are like,
Really bad driver. Like, holy shit.
Okay.
She's really bad. Like,
She's a woman.
No, I have to say, bad driving is true, but it's true though.
it's like I
Sorry.
but it's like
it also depends on where you're driving, because in Dallas,
It's a double whammy if you're
fucking
Asian and
nightmare
you're
driver.
a female.
I just think it's
Yeah.
sexy.
Yeah.
It's like ew, it's like you can't
Right.
drive a car.
wait, hold on. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm just gonna say, has anybody like been to like an H Mart or like an Asian store and been to the parking lot? It's a nightmare.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
That's because there's a cultural, well, at least for the Chinese, there's a cultural reason as to why they're bad drivers.
There was this one video I watched where this Asian chick jumped out of her car in one of those underground parking places, and she stood in the parking spot and she said, "This is my spot. I got here first." And she's just standing there because a dude was about to pull in, and he's like, "What the fuck?"
I've actually done that growing up. My parents let me do that.
Well, in China, they don't have, like, their cops don't police traffic violations. It's all done by camera, and you have, like, a license with points attached to it, and if they catch you doing something illegal, they'll just deduct points, and every year you get your points refilled. And so what happens is nobody follows traffic laws. And on top of that, it's legal to purchase scooters. You don't need a license at all to ride them. And so there's a bunch of people on scooters, and they drive crazy too. And the law is if you hit a person on a scooter, you're responsible to pay for them for the rest of their life.
Wow.
So people on scooters drive.
One interesting thing.
It's a bad thing.
One interesting that I notice about if you compare like American how driving is here in the States versus driving when I was in Taiwan, is that even though like America is such an individualist society, the roads, as much as you can complain about bad drivers, people tend to have a sort of a collective conscious, like, okay, we're all driving following these similar rules, and if someone is a horrible driver, we all agree they're doing something wrong. In Taiwan, being a collective culture, has a very, basically the roads are like a Darwinian nightmare. It's just everyone for themselves driving in every direction they want.
That's terrible. That's terrible.
I disagree. I know Shane is probably not going to like this, but I honestly, the older I've gotten, and now that I have a child and everything else,
How old are you?
I'm 24.
Okay. I'm older than you.
Yeah, I know that.
Just got that out there.
But
I'm older than all of you, okay? I'm older than all of y'all.
But the older I've gotten, and now that I have a kid and everything else, I've come to realize that libertarianism works in fantasy land.
Yeah.
So and I'll describe it. I'll describe it this way: individualism works to a certain point, but after a certain point, there's just certain things that just don't work with it, because I've noticed that once everyone's individual, it turns into a mob mentality quickly, because people forget that base human nature is mob-like. And so Asian societies, the reason they're so low crime, especially in East Korea, Japan, and China, the reason they're so low crime is because of that tribalistic mindset where it's like the good of the community. That's not to say that individualism is bad, but to a point, it doesn't work because we just have a natural instinct for collectivism.
Yeah, I think it really depends on the person because, like you were saying, you know, you can't just depend on every single person and be like, oh yeah, I know what's right, because everyone's gonna have a different opinion on that, you know?
Yeah.
Well, libertarianism states that, well, if everyone's playing the game, you have to play fair. But if somebody cheats in the game, then it's weird. So, like, for instance, if everyone's white or if everyone's Jewish and everyone's playing by a libertarian game, they assume also everyone is, you know, white or Jewish, and they don't assume like the other non-white is going to cheat in the game. Everyone's a libertarian educated. It's kind of like liberalism. You have to be educated to play the game, but if somebody cheats in the game, then libertarianism fails because, well, it doesn't benefit that person. You just basically get cucked in the end or something like that.
Well, the interesting thing about libertarianism is I think within Chinese culture and just Asian culture in general is the cultural and societal conscious is more collectivist, which serves a purpose. When you look economically, some of the most economically free areas are in Asia. So their economic system is then sort of tempered by their society, I'd say. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, libertarian today is like cowboyism in the American. It's like do your own thing.
I mean,
but,
you look at like
today
you go to
is
the night market and
terrible. I'm sorry.
And it's like this is capitalism going on, where while the people are still very collective in how they behave. Their economy is very capitalistic, but the mindset is very collectivist.
What did you say, Larson?
I said that like I used to be like a libertarian, and I do agree with like a lot of it's just the way it is today, especially like the left libertarianism is just embarrassing. I mean, we've also got the big bad guy like stripping.
Yeah, especially with the Libertarian Party.
Yeah.
That libertarian Twitter account bothers me so much.
Dude,
fucking verified one.
Are you talking about the Libertarian Party Twitter?
I think it's a verified Twitter account. I can't remember the exact name. It probably
Dankatarians?
Party and
Yeah, well, see, they were praising all the gun control marches, and I'm like,
Really? They are?
Yeah, that's what I was.
That's what it's.
This is why that people are going to continue to vote Democrat or Republican because that's all they know. They're like, oh, I guess they both think this, completely different.
Well, you know, the very first person I voted for was Gary Johnson when it was running against Obama. And the very first person I voted for was Gary Johnson.
Oh boy!
How'd you feel about that vote?
Well, at the time, that was before when he said, "What is Aleppo?" This was during a time when Rob got off.
And also before he did the rolling around on the floor thing.
It was just stupid when Gary Johnson ran against Trump. And it was like, well, Johnson, you were more important 4 years ago, but you kind of can't go against Trump now because all the libertarians are going to vote Trump, and he just didn't.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
What's
that one guy that's running right now for the Libertarian? He's running for the Libertarian candidacy. I can't remember his name, but
Kokesh?
Kokesh. That guy is insane. That guy is utterly insane.
I would agree with you on some points of that.
Well, see, here's the thing about Adam. Like, we've met him in person.
Yeah.
And he seemed like a cool guy. However, his policies, and everything he's saying is fine. But then I hear other things about, and I don't want to get too public about it, but it's out there. So I'm not saying it's my opinion. I'm saying it's other people's opinion. But they say he's abusive to women. He's just there to protest. He's just an activist. That's it. That's the reason why he gets arrested all the time. That's why anytime you hear about it, he gets arrested because that's what he wants. That's all he cares about. Say, hey, look, I got arrested for because the cops were talking to me. Because hey, I just registered to run for president, and guess what? I got arrested because I'm out of Kokesh. You know what I mean?
I don't want.
He doesn't believe in the. He doesn't believe in the military. He doesn't believe in borders. He doesn't believe in police. He thinks that he thinks the nation is just a group of people living together with property rights. And I'm like, that's not what a nation is.
Yeah, because we were talking about that too, about borders and how you.
Yeah, I like the one libertarian thing. Like most libertarians want open borders. I can't justify that.
Well,
because they don't have a country.
Well, I know Dave Smith is for sure going more
open borders.
Yeah.
Because
like you were saying, because you're not gonna have a country.
You're not gonna preserve any.
Like there's no culture that you can preserve if you just have people just going willy nilly walking around doing whatever the fuck.
People are just gonna go to the resources.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Hapa Ethnostate, though, how are full Asians allowed in if they're married to?
They're married to white people. But I was wondering though, like,
no, basically they just have to like choose from Asian and white. That's all.
Yeah, it's a citizenship number.
Asian or white.
It sounds autistic, like a computer program, but I wrote the same thing about it.
Yeah, Pat has a kid who would be 3/4 Asian, right?
Yeah,
Loudon. Yeah.
So if we're going into the Hapa Ethnostate, I guess they would have to marry a 1/4 Asian or a white person.
No, you can marry your Asian or white. It doesn't really.
Actually, I'm encouraging my son to either white or Asian. You know, either is fine.
What am I close?
We should be good at this. We're Asian. We can mathematically figure this out, guys.
Okay.
Back to math.
Okay, let's back
to math. Thanks a lot.
How do we make a Hapa out of a 3/4 Asian?
So what you're saying is we're going to practice some family eugenics here.
Yeah.
Yeah, Generation Z, like your Asian Hapas, they're pretty, if you want to use the word woke, on the ideal of a Hapa ethnostate. I have a friend named Hateful Hapa who's 15 years old. I know him personally, and he's already going to unite the right, and he's all for a Eurasian imperium. And this kid, I mean, I could get him on, but I don't know where he is at the moment. But
holy shit, 15 years old and he's already woke? Damn.
Yeah, I talk to him all the time.
Yeah.
Hateful Hapa.
I guess you missed the Tide Pods.
Oh, you know what?
He knows about
My entire theory is that American society since the 70s has infantilized children because it used to be like, geez, look at Alexander the Great. He conquered most of the known world by the time he was 16 to 18. That was like his biggest years. And now we just see these kids being infantilized saying, oh, yeah, you're not responsible enough to make your own decisions. At the same time, we want you to make decisions, but we want to do all the decisions for you. We see that with this gun control debate, with this March for Our Lives. They're not actually have their own opinions. They're not actually doing this themselves. It was all organized originally by adults. And so they're not given responsibility. They're just told what they should be responsible for.
Yeah, that was a big news story. You know, everyone's like, oh, these school students are, you know, they're organizing these events, and it's 90% of the people who are in these protests are all adults. And it's like, you're like,
we went to one of the protests to see what it was like, and there was a bunch of kids who had no idea what they were doing, and the adults were like organizing them to do stuff.
School off day. Everyone
there was only one student. She was the one that was speaking the most, and she like sounded like she wanted to become like the next big thing. You know, I want to be on CNN, Fox News, you know, every day.
Yeah, the rest.
That's what it sounded like to us.
The rest of them were just.
Oh, we're off school. Well, it was a Saturday, so.
I can't verify this. But I saw something on Twitter just maybe 30 minutes ago that said like the permit for the March for Our Lives was applied for months in advance before the Parkland shooting took place.
I heard that too.
Mm-hmm.
I heard that too.
Well, they were saying about that too with, you know, how like all the alt-right people and all the right nationals, they had the permits ready, and they're like, we already have this set.
Well, that's different because this was before the Parkland shooting.
I know, but I'm just saying that all these protests and all these marches, they already got this all set up and everything.
No, alt-right, yeah. There's
tinfoil hats. Get your tinfoil hats.
There's flaws in the alt-right too, Shane. Yeah.
What is that?
There's frauds in the alt-right too.
Oh yeah,
it's true.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that they're better than. I'm just saying that they had it all set up and ready to go. While everyone's acting like, oh, they just spontaneously did this. You know, it's like it's already been set up way in advance.
You know what's weird of all this is that these people who March for Our Lives are so vehemently against like guns, and they're all for like Like, have you seen like the Harry Potter memes where it's like, well, if the students of Hogwarts did it,
Are you seriously going to go towards a fantasy book?
if the Star Wars did it.
I've got the guideline on and how we're supposed to live our life. Hey, fuck you. Go talk to J.K.
You know, they're so SJW, but at the same time, if you look at like David Hogg, you know, the one kid going around saying he wants to get rid of guns, he's making literally a Sikh held. He's just putting a fist in the air. I don't know if you've seen the
No, that's a
I saw
commie
the video where
That's
You
a
think it's a
commie
commie
thing.
thing?
I
I don't know.
Hold on a second. Go ahead, Lee. Go ahead.
I saw the video where he was originally talking about wanting to take all the guns away and such. Someone cut out his own voice and put Hitler talking over.
Oh yeah, I saw that too. It was in black and white. That was great.
Oh, that was Alex Jones, right?
Who was so funny.
God damn it, with just the title. Yeah.
I mean, you could argue.
And people are getting mad, like how the right gets mad that the left are comparing everyone to Nazis, and they're comparing that Parkland kid to Hitler. I was like, well, because
we're doing it
about the same thing.
We're doing it as a joke.
Doing a commie fist, yeah.
Yeah, and
It's kind of like the same thing though, because he's doing the fist or whatever,
Yeah.
and then everyone complains we're doing the same. It's the same shit. It's just a different policy, different politics.
Well, I mean,
Not evil.
you could get into the argument whether commie fist or Sikh hailing is different, but it's like, well, you are kind of Sikh hailing in some way, and you believe in this authoritarian ideal. I'm just saying it's all SJW, but it's like commie at root or some hardcore. If I don't want to say like liberal fascism, that sounds like I'm a neocon or something, but you get the ideal. It's just like
I'm not
more than like David Hogg.
Hardline ideology. That's really
The
what
fact
it
that
is.
Okay, hold on. So what's your thought on the since we're on this topic right now? Because we're doing a move on, but since we're on the topic, what is your thoughts on the Kyle Kashif kid? What do you think about him?
I think he's a joke.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking too.
I think the kid is using it the same way David Hogg is. He's using conservatives to push his agenda. And also, I think that another thing I don't like about him is that he uses people like Ben Shapiro. And Ben Shapiro is a hypocrite. I like a lot of what he says, but he's pro-Jewish state. And at the same time, he denies everybody else the right to have their own state.
Are you talking about pro-apathet and all that?
Yeah.
I don't mind Kyle. I did a thread about this actually. The reason why I don't like David Hogg is his reality is distorted, and he's doing nothing.
You know what? I don't like about
I don't like any of those
on Twitter and Reddit.
Hold on a second. Go ahead, Larson. Go ahead.
It's just like the thing about David Hogg and that like buzz cut Mexican lesbian girl, whatever. She's Cuban actually. It's just they're bullies. Like they've admitted that they bullied the kid that shot the other kids, and there's like records of them on Twitter doing it.
Yeah, I'm surprised no one's talked about that.
Hogg is also a liar. Like, and if you watch, there's so many.
Yeah, I just hate how like they dare to claim that they're victims.
There's so many contradictions. There's one time where he claimed he was in a different building when the shooting happened at the school, and then there's another time he claimed he wasn't even there, and he came on his bike when the shooting was happening.
Because he said that he rode his bike like 3 miles, and he grabbed his camera, and he was going to the block. Hey, what's going on? And, wouldn't you think the first reaction of a school shooting was happening was to get the fuck out?
Yeah, and then he said, "Oh, my sister lost 5 friends," and then in another interview.
Oh my god! I'm so glad you're mentioning this, Leaf. I'm so glad because I was seeing that too. Because he was like, "Oh, my sister lost 4 friends," and the next video, "Oh, my sister lost 2 friends." Hey, make the fucking mind
here, my dude.
I don't
like any of them. Like they're all brats. They're all money hungry and they're all fame hungry whores who are using dead bodies of their peers as stepping stones.
All this is happening.
I was thinking about that too.
All this is happening less than a month after the shooting. I'm like, you need to give time for the families to bury the dead. Like if my kid died and I saw a bunch of kids standing on my kid's grave, I would want to go freaking punch the shit out of them, saying you're not even respecting my daughter's death until her body is cold. Her body's still warm.
These Parkland brats missed funerals and everything.
Oh yeah. they weren't friends. I guarantee you, they weren't friends with half these kids that died. I mean, if you look at Parkland, it's a huge school.
There is a kid that
oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
There was the kid that used his body as like a fucking shield to save his classmates. He got shot more than once, and he. Does anybody even remember that kid? Like,
why isn't he in the news?
He got media attention, but that's it. Like,
you remember when that one dude that literally drove towards that guy because he had a gun and he like chased after him and made sure he was arrested and everything. He was like a news story for a day, and that's it.
Yeah, it's because it doesn't fit the narrative. It doesn't fit the narrative.
I want to hear about like pathetic victims getting killed so we can push gun control, obviously.
Yeah, it's really sad to see what's going on in America because I feel like the GOP, and I vote the GOP just because they're really the only viable option, but they have abandoned their roots. They have not been the same party since Eisenhower. Even Reagan wasn't that conservative, to be honest. He didn't conserve a whole hell of a lot. Eisenhower
Bush definitely made it worse. I mean, he made a complete, a department solely for homeland security, so that's a whole other, trillions of dollars going to that shit, you know what I mean? But, so I guess kind of, reeling it, kind of going off topic, but this is great, but, kind of going back, because we have some questions that we want to ask everybody, but, what we're talking about, which backgrounds did you embrace the most when you were growing up? Did you embrace more of your Asian side or your white side, or did it not matter, or did it
100% my white side. My mom was just like, your Asian side's not going to get you anywhere in life.
Really? She said that to you?
Mm-hmm. That's why she did not want me to learn Lao. She said it will not be useful at all.
Wow.
I kind of had cycles of it. Like when I was really young, I mean, I went to a school that had like a lot of black kids, and they just saw me as white, so I just saw myself as white. And then when I grew up and I wasn't getting laid, I was like, I'm going to be like an Asian SJW. And then as I matured, I kind of realized, I can. These are both, high achieving K selected populations. I can hold them both in accord. That's what I've done pretty much up until now.
Yeah, pretty much unapologetically white. It's not until you get to college they try to tell you should be aware for being Asian, and that's like you really don't care because, well, if you enjoyed being white, you think in terms of that. I think most healthy people who have a healthy identity don't really question it. It's only bad, unhealthy people who have identity crisis, but healthy people are okay with what side they associate and are not hyper conscious what they think they are.
Yeah,
I'd say for me, every morning I wake up, I'm like an ethnofluid person. One day I wake up depressed, I want to be on the road. Other days I wake up and I want to oppress my other half. It's really weird. It's like, I tend to obviously being in the States for most of my life. I more identify with more European white culture, more American culture, if that means anything.
Yeah.
But then the whole Asian side, I definitely like appreciate it. Definitely still like hold to it, like study and understand it. Still, still speak the language and everything. But kind of it's a mix of both. Like when I get married and have kids and stuff, I'm going to raise them in understanding both.
Yeah.
If I marry a Hapa woman who's of the same mix,
then Eurasianism.
Yeah.
That's pretty much, that's what I'm actually saying is Eurasianism. If you're a Eurasianist, you really don't think in terms of red or blue. It's purple.
Yeah. So, Connor?
Yeah, so for my daughter, the one thing that I really want to do to try and instill a sense of pride is I want to teach her, being a history major, I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to that stuff. So I want her to learn her history from both sides of her family, And so I got a DNA test done on her, and now, it's really fascinating to see that, So for me, I think right now living in Korea, we're primarily focusing on Korean culture just because that's what she's going to be surrounded with for the good portion of her life. But that doesn't mean I want her to forget all of her roots. It's difficult for me because I can't identify with the Asian side of the culture as much. So I can only do enough to give her the plate of what I know and give her an open book, and she has to make that decision for herself. But it's hard for me because I don't know how to best do that sometimes, you know?
Yeah, that sounds about right. So,
How old is she?
She's a year and a half.
So does she speak in English to you, or does she speak in Korean to you?
So we're doing about 50-50 right now. So in the house around her family, the Asian side of the family, we speak Korean. But when we're out in public, me and my wife, we speak English. So our goal is to try and give her a good balance.
Okay.
You know,
Just do that.
Just bilingual is really important.
You should speak to her in English, and her mother should speak to her in Korean.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we try to do a balance. Yeah, we try. It's hard though. It's really, really hard.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, she's your kid, so definitely, like you're saying, you both, kind of give her the tools, and then once she, when she grows up, she can make that decision on what, she wants to.
Well, she's gonna have to. If we have any more kids and they're boys, being a Korean citizen, boys have to decide what national country they're gonna serve. Because you have, as a boy, you have to either give up Korean citizenship, or you're going to be joining the military, or that means you have to accept your U.S. national. But for my daughter, she can be both. It doesn't matter for her. She doesn't have that conflict of interest. She can hey, I want to live in America this year, or next year she wants to live in Korea. It doesn't matter for her. But for any sons I have in the future, if I do have any. They're going to be conflicted on that, and that's a kind of a worry I have a little bit.
Yeah, that's understandable. So, Jimmy Hapa, go ahead.
You can't keep calling her that.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, answer.
I'm a forgotten nationalist. I was just trying to I was just doing that because my you should go with Jimmy Hapa.
Yeah. But yeah, well, which yeah, go ahead.
So what was the question again?
Which background did you embrace the most when you were growing up? Or?
Oh, well, yeah. You know what? I mean, if anyone follows me on Twitter, I basically identify with my white side because I was raised by my white side of my family because my parents divorced when I was 9. So, and my dad got custody of me. So I'm a war baby. I'm a Vietnam War baby. Okay, and so my dad met my mother in Vietnam. He did the right thing and brought her here. He married her. I was born in California, and they divorced when I was 9, and he got custody, and I was raised in Oregon, and that's basically why I appreciate. I appreciate white culture. I appreciate white Western Civ, and
Does anyone have Does anyone in here have a white mother?
Yes. Well, it's weird. It's Kazakhstanian.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, I know what you're saying. Never mind.
She's more.
It's she would classify, but it's Kazakh.
So I kind of understand why some people think it's a fetish thing for white males, because it does seem like 90% of the people I meet that are mixed have a white father.
Yeah.
I can understand why some people think that way. I do.
It's the ideal if we're talking about patriarchies. I mean, not to sound like some stupid. No, I'm not talking like a stupid feminist, but I'm talking about a healthy ideal of a patriarchy. For example, there's a white male, Asian female. They have an offspring. The dad's going to be a relationship. It's a white patriarchy. If it's Asian male, white female, then it's going to be an Asian patriarchy. Now, to harp back on the Hapa Reddit thing, the Hapa Reddit would make bad eugenics arguments saying it turns out Asian male white female produces better offsprings than white male Asian female. As you can see, Elliot Rogers is the worst.
That's stupid. And
yeah, because if you look into eugenics, it turns out
retard shit.
Yeah, it turns out, well, it's just a patriarchy theory, and not to sound like a liberal. Technically, it's a social construction, but the thing is, it eugenically produces eugenic children, the same Eurasian children, Asian male, white female, or white female.
Are there anyone else other than myself and Forgotten Nationalists who are, I guess, military brats, as they call them?
I'm in the military.
No, but I'm talking about, are you, like, so you're an offspring
Against
of
military brat? Against
What?
military brat?
Well, because you're saying that your dad and your mom met when when your dad was in the Vietnam War, right?
Yes. Yes.
So technically, you're a military brat, as they call it.
Yes.
My dad was in the Air Force and met my mom. So technically, I'm part of the military brat. So that's what I'm saying. Someone else is an offspring of a military father or whatever, and they met someone in an Asian country while they're in the military. Anyone else like that?
Okay.
Or was it just myself and forgotten nationalists?
My father met my mom after his service in the States.
Oh, okay.
Going back to the last thing about if we take on our Asian culture,
Yeah.
the reason I don't take on my Lao side, which I'm really proud of my Lao side, but the reason why I don't take it on is because currently the Lao culture of my mother's time has been totally destroyed under communism. Not a trace remains of old Laos. So it's just extinction of part of our culture. It's kind of sad.
Pat. So Pat, what's your dad's side? Or your mom
Welsh.
is Lao,
Mm-hmm.
and what is your dad?
Welsh.
Oh, okay.
I do like that you make that distinction. I do like that. That's one thing as a white guy, I gotta admit this, is it's annoying when people say I'm Caucasian. I'm like, I'm not Caucasian. I'm Germanic and like Celtic. And I don't like this idea that we have to lump all ethnic groups into one big thing because they're really different.
Well,
and
that's one of the points I make on Twitter a lot. Whenever somebody says like all white people or something, I always ask, define white.
Yeah.
And nobody can really do it.
I mean, this is a big talk about eugenics. I mean, if you talk about white Americana, part of my background is Irish, Poland, Hungarian, and we could just trace where those backgrounds are from. The same thing as with Chinese, Korean, Japanese. I mean, we're talking about racial difference and intelligence, and that's a huge. So if you have like a giant group of, quote unquote, Asian Americans, whether that's Northeast and Southeast, then you're going to have this huge cluster of things. It isn't just Asian, and you have to determine what's what. And that's really hard to do because things get more complicated as things break down.
I feel like people are, like they don't really choose to understand people that are kind of ethnocentric, like nationalists. Like I tend to kind of fall more towards the nationalist side, but I definitely think ethnicity is an extremely important factor. I'm not against a Polish person and for example, Japanese person marrying, but I don't want it to be something that is like pushed on culturally by the government or by schools or anything like that. I want it to be free, someone choosing to do that.
Freedom of association.
And so what's happening? Yeah, what's happening in Europe right now is that all these European governments are so ashamed of their culture and their histories that they're feeling that the way to make up for it is by forcing diversity. But that's not going to solve anything. That's just going to cause more issues down the road.
It's a white people problem, and it's not a
It's not a Hapa, but Hapas are going to have that same issue in the future, though, because what's happening is when you force people to integrate, it causes more segregation. With more segregation, you guys are going to be torn down the middle. You guys are going to be torn in half because liberals are saying, well, we want diversity, and then the backlash is going to be everybody's going to kind of stick to their own again. The people think that we're going to become this big, like, giant one type of ethnicity in the world because eventually we're all going to interbreed.
I get what you're saying, Connor. Yeah, we don't want a beige culture. No, absolutely not.
So what about you?
Diversity.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead, Fish. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I love true diversity. So like I want to go to Japan, Korea, China, India, and see their cultures and embrace them and experience them. I don't want to see a beige just nothingness.
So real quick, diversity for the sake of diversity is not diversity. Is that agreeable?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's diversity. Here's the thing: it's diversity, but it's shit.
That's exactly what I was talking about when I was growing up. Is when they desegregated the schools, they just did so on a racial basis.
Yeah.
So what you ended up with was all the kids just segregating themselves anyways.
Right.
It's the argument of
naturally segregate. Exactly.
Yeah. So what about you, Leaf? I know we haven't gotten to you on your upbringing and what you related to more.
I don't really know. Like, since the schools I went to was like really really hard because, like I said, I wasn't exactly accepted by either fully. But
Right.
Even growing up raised by the Asian half of my family, I never really fully embraced that side. I mean, I guess it depends. Like, for certain things, I'll embrace like the white side of my family more, but for certain other things, I'll embrace the Japanese side more. And I've never really been like fully choosing one and only one, and sticking to that. But
So, like, what part of Canada are you at? Because I know, like, a lot of, I don't know if it's like Toronto or Vancouver. There's a lot of majority Asian.
Where I live, there's a lot of Filipinos, like a lot.
Really? So I fit in pretty well then, except for that my skin's too light.
Well, I can't deal with some like the Filipinos were like this could sound really bad. They're loud. They're really really loud. They're like they all seem to know each other. Like they'll be one on one side of the street and then one on the other, and they'll scream at each other. Even when they're right next to each other, they're screaming at each other. So I never really was like, yeah, I'm gonna just stay away from you guys. You guys are.
You're from Canada?
And for whatever reason, whenever it comes to like the Asian like gangs, it was always the Filipinos. Like they were always like fighting. They were always like bringing machetes. This one Filipino kid who got jumped in
machetes.
Yeah, machetes.
What? Okay, that's weird. I've not heard of that.
This is when I was in school though, and one of the dudes that I went to school with, he got jumped and beaten with a baseball bat by another group of Filipinos, and he was hospitalized. It's like, okay, they were always the ones instigating fights and fighting with each other, and I was just like, okay, I'm gonna just sit far away from you guys because you guys are fucking crazy.
You know how Filipinos are. You know when like. You know, they say.
Just saying that because your stepmom was Filipino.
Yeah, my stepmom was Filipino. So, you know, like they say, hey, be at the party at 12. Hey, guess when they show up? 3:30.
Yes.
The president is basically the Punisher.
Polish people are the same way.
It's so funny.
What you do is you tell them to be in at the place a few hours before the actual thing starts so that they show up on time.
But then if you show up on time,
it is my privilege as like a half Chinese person, half German, and high functioning person that when I say I show up at a time, I show up on time. I'm exerting my white privilege there.
if you show up on time and for like a Filipino party, then they're gonna be like, "We're not ready yet."
It's 3 o'clock. You're supposed to be at 3. No, I'm getting up. It's 4 o'clock. What are you talking about?
So for you guys, I'm just curious for you guys, how when someone brings up, I try and do this as much as possible, but on Twitter, if someone brings up like something like race or something like that or white privilege, I'm like, well, my daughter's half white. She looks pretty white skinned. I mean, if you see my Twitter, you can see her profile pic. She's got pretty white skin. She's got red hair, blue eyes, but she's half Asian. So how much white privilege does she have?
Well, if you were talking to Tariq Nasheed, he would say that she has double white privilege because Asians are apparently white. We thrive on white supremacy.
You use white privilege as a social signal to get more friends.
There's no white privilege.
There's like super Asian privilege because Asians make more than whites in the U.S. on average.
Yeah.
So that means 1.5 privilege.
White privilege is a myth.
Well,
I said that yesterday and got attacked.
Well, you basically get out a free white privilege card if you're Asian. So it's like, oh, I'm into white culture. I can't be white privilege.
The only thing I can get in terms of white privilege is the way the police treat the whites when it comes to how they behave towards blacks. So you see a lot of these black people getting shot, and you're like,
Some white people too.
I guess so. I don't know. I guess in terms of the public. The way that how it's public, the publicity of it, I guess that's no.
Wait. Go ahead. So you guys know that there's like discrimination on the affirmative action for colleges acceptance, where the people are being discriminated against are usually whites and Asians.
Oh yeah, sure.
I find affirmative action insulting. It's like,
oh yeah, for sure.
You don't have the skills for this job, but you have a vagina, so we're gonna hire you.
Yeah, because oh yeah, because
I'm not insulted by that. You're either the token black or the token female. It's like how do you?
Well, no, yeah, because isn't it like the way it is? Like the point I say for like I don't know, for an example, the way affirmative action works is like, okay, so we need so and so amount of blacks to be in our college. Even though they didn't do so well on the test, we're gonna bring them in anyway because we need the 50 blacks in our college. Isn't that kind of how?
Well, you want to know why that's the case? The case is what in my school. What happened was I go to a school in Minnesota. I went to a school in Minnesota called.
Oh, how dare you! How dare you!
Oh, I know. And I didn't get a single. I got decent grades. I didn't get a single. I applied for quite a few scholarships. I didn't get a single one, not a single grant, nothing. You know, because I'm a white guy, and the big thing that really bothered me was all these Asian people were getting in. I'm like, well, where are they coming from?
Get a free white privilege card.
Yeah, all right.
Well, no. What happens is that these schools actually will give kids from foreign countries that meet the diversity quota. They'll give them full ride scholarships. And they're not even Americans. And so what happens is these kids get full ride scholarships. Yeah, they get these full ride scholarships because what happens is the federal government gives these schools money based on diversity quotas. So they get more money if they are more diverse. So I get gypped. I didn't get a free education because I'm white, or if you're Asian, depending on if you're in California, it's Asian. I didn't get a free education because of that, but God forbid, get people from foreign countries and not care about actual Americans.
Yeah, go ahead, Forgotten Nationalist. Go ahead.
That's wrong.
What?
Forgotten Nationalist. Go ahead.
No, I was agreeing with Connor. Yeah.
Oh, I mean.
Oh, okay. But yeah, that's what I was saying before. Diversity for the sake of diversity is not diversity.
Well, they just become Chinese spies, and then they just want to, that's what I think the conundrum is.
No, it's not Chinese spies. It's Russian spies. Russian collusion.
Yeah, that's it. That they allowed in, but
Russians are the most discriminated against group in America right now.
Russians are the new Obama. Every time something.
Dude, okay.
Well,
hold on a second. Listen.
Wow. We're going to go into that shit.
Well, the Death Eaters in Harry Potter, half of them are Russian.
Shut up.
Can I please say, I mean, I never really hated Harry Potter until people started talking like it was like this guide to the life month. Please read some other books.
No, I swear, the Death Eaters are half Russian. There's like 3 Death Eaters.
No, go ahead, Lee.
Oh, sorry. A bunch of foreign students in my province are really pissed off because my province recently repealed universal health care for foreign students. So they no longer get free health care, but it's going to save our province $3.1 million. Wow. And they're mad. We deserve this universal health care. This is why I came to this province, was for the free health care.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, so sad. Oh my God! It's like with us with the Affordable Care Act. Yeah, Affordable Care Act, my ass. Hey, guess what? I didn't have health care for most of the year. Guess what I got to do? I got to pay for a fucking tax. Fuck you, Obama.
Time for him to come back.
You fucking asshole.
Perfect time.
I don't really give a shit, dude. Obama was such a disappointment, and I don't give a fuck. All Obama eyes are fucking sucking his dick.
Wait. Some people were saying that we should support him as Hapas. I saw this on our Hapas. He's not black, so we have to support mixed people.
The only good thing.
Yeah, but
that's a fucking lie.
He didn't present himself as a mulatto. He presented himself as a black.
Yeah, the only thing I can always say good about Obama was it's basically he was the candidate to get rid of the neoconservative movement and just make a transition to SJW.
He won.
The conservative is still there.
Yeah.
He won the Nobel Peace Prize based off of a fucking catchphrase. Oh, hope you can believe it. He didn't do shit. Libyan slave trade. There's slaves in Libya. That motherfucker. You fucking asshole.
Jane, yeah.
Well, that's all I can say.
What a disappointment.
I can say is just no more conservatism. And I don't know.
Dude, I can't believe I'm actually saying this. He makes Bush look like a teddy bear.
So, Shane.
Bush was a fucking war murderer.
It's getting too libertarian in here.
There's libertarians coming out. Everyone, hold on. We need a tranquilizer. Anyone have a tranquilizer?
That motherfucker. Holy shit.
Hey.
Okay.
Hey, guys. Hey.
Shane.
What?
Shane.
What?
So,
Shane
what was the most difficult thing about growing up Hapa for everyone? Most difficult thing growing up Hapa?
What's the most difficult?
That was the actual question. I don't know how it came to Obama, but I'm sorry. Someone go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Amos, for asking that question. Was that you, Amos, to ask that question?
Yeah. I'm literally, if you look at our chat, I'm telling you to chill the fuck out, dude. I get your grievances with Obama.
I'm fucking dying over here.
Hey, Obama deserves to get a spaz app. I don't give a fuck. That motherfucker deserves it. Such a disappointment, dude. If Trump makes peace with the Koreans,
so what is the most difficult thing?
You want to know growing up Hapa? All the news organizations will be blowing their fucking brains out.
Hey, Pat, what was the most difficult thing about you growing up Hapa?
Oh, just the racism I experienced. Just
Oreo go with us.
Stream there, man.
Horrible racism, just unchecked.
Well, for me, like I keep saying, it's the idea that as an Asian man, like no one's gonna want to have sex with you. And once I proved that I could have sex, I was like, there's really no problems here.
Right.
Okay, so it seems that mostly racism seems to be the reason that when we grow up, because we don't look white or we don't look black. That seems to be the main thing as to.
I had double racism.
I suppose.
Really? What was it?
I'm white in Taiwan when I was living there for over 8 years, and I was Asian here. So I had racism on both sides of the world. Over there, and it was another weird thing too, being Minnesotan, I was more acclimated to, I don't know if it's a genetic thing, but I was more acclimated to the cold. So Taiwan winters are like 50 degrees. So I'm out there in a t-shirt, and everyone thinks it's the weirdest thing. And then I come here, and my Chinese genes kick in, and I'm okay in the heat. It's like 95 degrees, and then it's like whatever. So
that's not fun. No, it's definitely it is a genetic thing. People born in cold weathers have thicker blood cells, and so they cause more friction in your body, creating more heat.
That explains why I hate the cold, because my mom grew up in the Philippines. So
because I grew up in both, so it's like
I'm allergic to the cold, like literally allergic to the cold. I get high.
And you live in Canada?
Why live in Canada? Move to Texas.
It is a curse. I get really bad hives too. Like it's.
I mean, you can move, you know.
I want to kill myself.
I highly recommend moving from that hellhole of Canada.
Shithole.
Yeah, move that shithole. Move to Texas, please.
Is this gonna be like a trash Canada stream?
Canada's really weird. I'll be honest with you. I don't know. I've been there a few times. It's always been. I mean, the politics and the food and the entertainment and the creep catchers. I don't know what to make of it.
There's 3 Canadas. There's Quebec, Vancouver, and then the rest of Canada.
Yeah, Vancouver
is the Quebec. Nobody likes Quebec.
Vancouver is where maybe a
Quebec is like the black sheep of Canada.
Yeah, I believe in Vancouver, but I don't know about anywhere. I don't know.
Isn't there some like?
Where are you from, Leaf?
Isn't like Quebec have some pretty strong French Canadian like nationalism?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Quebec. But other than that, they try to beat America through multiculturalism. They social signal all the time by being like, "We're so multicultural. We got Somalians over here. America doesn't." You know, there's also this like white people.
We got them here in Minnesota.
There's this white people myth where it's like, well, I hate America so much, I want to move to Canada because other white people are there. And it's just like this goofy.
Yeah, I mean, they never say they want to move to Mexico for some reason.
It's always been this. Yeah. Canada's much more free. You know, I don't know. That's why.
So if you guys created Ethnostate, so let's say you create it, what are the rules besides the blood and the genetic? But what are the rules? How do you set it up?
I propose.
I don't like that's why.
Weebs.
That's why I'm having
banned.
life.
Weebs are banned.
You gotta set up the
Furries are
rules.
banned. No furries allowed or no weebs allowed?
Who would be God Emperor of this ethno-state? I propose Dean Cain.
Whoa! So you're saying that you want a monarchy, huh?
Exactly.
We're getting a monarchy. What? Wait a minute.
I like the ideal of Chinatown and neo-Nazi land, but that's kind of weird. I mean, I always thought of it as like Chinatown in an urban city, vegan restaurants, punk rock shows, art galleries, and the occasional Asian American.
Vegan restaurant.
Yeah, I'm not
I think of it like a weird synergy between the two, where it's like a hip and urban Portland, Oregon, but it's Asian or something.
Better not be like Portland, Oregon. It can't be all vegan restaurants because
It's like you get the Swepple culture mixed with Eurasianism, and there it is. Yeah.
I don't know. Should we establish rules for that?
I guess. I mean, you're the one
unless you're into monarchy and you don't like.
We're gonna write our constitution.
All right,
I never thought in terms of that. I would just be considered like Eurasian Zionist. Like Theodore Herzl would be like. Theodore Herzl was I believe in Zion. I believe, that's what I'm doing. I'm just like, I believe in Eurasian land somewhere there, but I don't know the rules. I just don't know.
We could, I think us together, we could carve out a good chunk of land in Mongolia. I mean, they're pathetically weak over there.
Do they have any
Mongolians?
though?
Look at Singapore. Singapore doesn't have any natural resources yet.
Yeah, Singapore is great. A lot of Eurasians are in Singapore.
Yeah, I was gonna say, aren't there a lot of Hapas in Singapore? We could do it.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Vancouver, Singapore,
Hawaii.
And Hawaii.
Right?
Hawaii is like Thailand, though.
You gotta change it. You gotta get rid of the old fogies and replace it.
You have to get rid of the ideology in Hawaii.
We could just go to Guam.
Yeah.
Just go to Guam.
Just carve out Okinawa in Japan. Just make your American base there. It's possible.
Okay, so I want to know from each of you. I want to know what the worst thing you've ever been teased. Like, what's the worst thing that's ever been said to you because of the way you look?
Chink.
Like a specific phrase. Do you remember a story that someone was trying to?
Someone called me a chink before. I was
called a chink.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's
never been racial slurs, and I hate beating this drum, but I've been told no one will ever fuck you.
Yeah.
Kiss a girl. That's really it.
Amos, your turn.
Half-breed cancer is another one. Someone said I was half-breed cancer that needed to die.
Oh wow.
What?
Precisely. If your life is full of drama, my God.
Was this
to be honest,
shit, man.
In real life?
It's interesting. Americans being racist towards me was more annoying, just incessant, just constant. Whereas with Chinese, the racism I got from my Chinese side of the family, and just the culture was more. I guess they would dig deeper. So, Chinese culture is very against just your way of life in general. I would, because I was in Taiwan, but I would still have cereal for breakfast. Well, you can't do that because that's not you have to have a Chinese breakfast. You can't. And then because I was always a little bit of a huskier guy when I was younger. I was never fat or overweight, but it was always called fat.
Yeah.
And that always just was and then that was also ingrained in a lot of the culture.
With the Asian standards, you're considered.
Oh, I am morbidly obese.
Yeah.
Here, I may be just overweight. That
was one thing.
That was, I guess, the worst thing.
I was chubby as a kid.
Really?
I feel like standards, they have a very high standard of what is considered fat.
Nothing against you, Nico, but you would be considered fat. They would just say fat. Yeah.
Yeah, because my Asian family, every time I go there, they're like, you're gaining a little bit of weight, but you should keep eating. Eat.
Exactly.
Then, I'm like, what do you want?
Another bowl of rice. Here, another bowl of rice.
Yeah.
But you're fat.
You can't deny the food, but you're getting too fat.
When I was 95 pounds before, and I'm 5 foot tall, so 95 is normal. and when I was in Thailand for 3 months, I was considered normal. But then, if I gained any more weight other than that, then I would be considered fat.
I love Asians when it comes to weight though, because they'll put like 2 models to show off, like in one pair of pants to show off how big the pants are. And like, well, why don't you just use a fat person? It's like, have you you know what it's anything about like? And most Asian
I
countries,
love
no
you,
fat
Lee.
people.
You're so sweet.
There's not a lot of fat people. You have like, fuck, what the hell do they call those girls? Pillow girls, I think they're called. Something like that. Where
Body
they're
pillows.
a little bit chubby, but they're not fat. Like, there's no really morbidly obese.
Yeah, chubby's fine. I think chubby's sexy.
You have to look really damn hard in Korea to find a fat person.
It's just
like,
it's not a
Yeah.
thing.
Have you ever experienced like your wife or your kid getting in? Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. So my wife, it's hit her from both sides. So I know for a fact that they haven't said this to her face. They say it to me mostly, but people have called her, "Oh, you married a gook," you know. Which in America is my wife doesn't. It doesn't affect her because she doesn't know what that means. Because for her, in Korean language, gook just means country. So mi gook is America, Hanguk is Korea. But when it comes to Korea, a lot of her friends were saying, "Oh, you married to a white guy, so you're
Time is it?
you're kind of a traitor to your bloodline." Blah, blah, things like that, and it was really, really brutal because like I don't care, you know, racism. Like it's like a water off a duck's back for me, but for my wife, she got really, really defensive about it, and it hurt her a lot. For my daughter, nothing so far, but in Korea, my daughter's considered the ideal standard of beauty because she's got pale, almost white person-like skin.
Yeah.
She's got a high nose bridge. She's got, you know, Korean shaped eyes, so she still looks Korean, but she's got all the features that are positive in Korean.
So she's gonna be a model. Is what you're saying.
Well, I hope so, because she'll give me some money.
That's weird. I knew a Japanese Eurasian girl. Her father was Australian. Her mom was Japanese, and she was in the modeling. She went to Temple just to be a model. I just thought that was funny.
There's a lot of Eurasian models in Asia.
Yeah, I don't mean to brag, but I've modeled for art studios.
My siblings modeled growing up.
That just shows you the supreme Eurasian gentleman.
No, go ahead, Larson. You were saying something. Go ahead.
I was just saying that I myself have modeled for art studios, so I guess that just shows that I have the Hapa like godlike beauty, I guess.
Yeah, and that's could be claimed for a Eurasianist identity as this ultimate person of the future.
What about you, Forgotten Naturalist? Anything terrible that's been said your way? Does it look different?
I want to look into the whole IRA thing. I want to like look into that.
Are you still on this thing, man? I mean,
yeah, no, I am.
Hard to hear.
I guess the boyfriend's on the other end.
Very hard to hear. Okay.
Yeah.
Move on.
So for Hapa stuff, I've always been a little weary. What is one thing that you could give me as advice that you wish your parents would have done a little differently?
Don't constrain you to either culture's sort of expectations. For example, for me, like on my dad's side, it was like a big push for like sort of this Americana like behaviors, and then on my mom's side, it was very much like academics first. So there was a big conflict, and it would just really mess with my priorities. Like I really liked football, but then my parents also really wanted me to be good in academics, and it was difficult to balance the two, you know, because Asians shouldn't be involved in sports, but Americans, it's just, you know what I'm saying. There's a big conflict, so you have a sort of a identity crisis.
Asians should be involved in sports. What?
No, it was just a huge identity crisis, and it's difficult because you never really like it's good to expose you to both cultures, but don't
trying to get my son to like get interested in sports. It's like it's everything I'm trying to say.
Oh yeah, get him interested.
Like, I want him to like be more interested in sports.
My father forced me to try football, but then again, my mother was like, "You have to go. Like, you have to."
It's like,
and it's like, expose them to those cultures, but don't restrict them and say you have to conform to these expectations, because you know, growing in your upbringing, your identity is going to be so fucked up, and this is why probably there's a there's a lot of SJWs, because their identity is literally all over the place.
Yeah.
So,
what about you, Pat? What's the worst thing that's been said about you because you look different?
I remember distinctly this one time I was in the Boy Scouts, and me and my mother were doing a fundraiser to help some sort of church raise money for some charity. And I remember asking this one, it was at Dick's Sporting Goods. I remember asking this one guy walking in, just a regular white guy, if he wanted to donate any money. And he just looked at me and said, "I don't want you sending this money back to China," and just walked in. And it was just like, I'm not Chinese at all. Like, I don't know what you're getting at. So, I mean, growing up, there's a lot of just
yeah, that seems to be the norm. Yeah, that seems to be the norm, that, you know, if you look any kind of Asian, you're Chinese automatically.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah.
You know, I've been told that I must eat dog and cat. Hey, how does dog and cat taste? You know, and I tell them, it tastes chicken. Tastes great. You know?
That's the worst fucking, like, you know, Asian fucking stereotype. I hate that. You eat dog. I hate that.
Yeah, again, it's like this weird ideal that the dad is supposedly this weird Chinese dog eater, and the good is this Japanese. Like, ooh, you come from a artistic culture. You can see like the weirdness how whites judge on that. I don't know.
Go ahead.
Speaking of dogs, has anyone? I've never had dog. I'm just gonna straight say up front. What is the closest? What is the closest experience you've ever come across that? Have you had family members that have eaten dog?
I got a story.
Oh, go ahead.
I went to visit China, like my wife's hometown is in mainland China. And, we were walking down the street and I was joking like, "Oh, are we going to get dog or something?" And she's like, "We don't need dog here." And in China, they have like drying racks where they'll hang all their meat out, like sausages and everything. Well, right as she said that, we were passing one of these drying racks, and there's like legit a dog carcass just hanging from it.
Wow.
But it's a delicacy. Like, a lot of people don't eat it. It's very rare. So
yeah, I've never eaten dog. I mean, I've eaten frog, but not dog.
Frog is pretty good.
And
frog tastes like chicken.
Alligator.
Yeah. Alligator. Yeah, alligator's good.
Shark.
Elk.
It's funny. You guys are all half Asian. I'm the only one who's actually gone and eaten dog.
Yeah, rabbit.
Oh, really?
Really?
Rabbit.
Oh, wow.
What does dog taste?
Oh, dog.
Dog.
So,
It's pretty tough and chewy. A bunch of me and the military guys that I hang out with, we all went to an area where they serve dog, and yeah, it was interesting. It wasn't bad. It's just the thought. The thought is what messes you up. Is thinking, "Oh man, I'm eating a dog." But you know, it's actually the worst. So. I gotta admit, the worst. Okay.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye.
The worst thing I've ever tasted is a live octopus. That is disgusting.
Yeah, octopus is not good. It's like, I feel the tentacle gets in your mouth. It gets in your throat. It's all wet.
Right? Like the live octopus thing? Because I've only heard of that in Korea.
No, it's live.
Oh, it's really common in Korea. You see little tanks everywhere with like 20 or 30 octopuses, and people just wrap them around a stick and just
I had that
right up.
It's disgusting. I mean, it's good.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Okay, has anyone had stingray? Because my brother, he went to Korea for 3 months, and now he's living in Japan, but he said that stingray was the worst thing he's ever eaten in his life.
Ew, I don't know what that is.
It's really a Korean delicacy. I don't know.
I've never had it.
My closest experience with dog was so in Taiwan, it's a very common thing to actually have like maids, usually either from the Philippines or Vietnam, they'll come over and you like, they live with you and they're like a maid. So my mom had a maid and she would like hang out with the other maids in the neighborhood. And one day, one of the maids prepared a dog, and my mom comes home and she opens up the freezer and sees this full bag of dog in our freezer. And he was like, "Oh no, I'm just holding on to it for someone." And we're like, "Fuck." My mom ate dog as a child unknowingly.
Oh man.
He was poor. Well, the family was poor and didn't have any meat that night. So my grandfather prepared the family dog, their pet.
Wow. Wow.
And my mom was like crying as she's like, "Oh my gosh, we ate the dog."
Well, that's actually something that people don't understand. The reason Chinese get this bad claim about them eating dog is because in Korea and China, the reason they started eating dog in the first place is because they became so poor after the wars and stuff like that, and during the communist regimes and stuff like that, that they had no choice but to eat their own family dogs to survive. And dogs breed really, really fast, so it's an easy source of cheap meat. So
same thing can be said about any other animal in other cultures. Like, you know, in Africa, they'll eat elephants. It's like, well, it's a matter of how different cultures view it. You know, Western cultures use cats and dogs as pets, but then in China and Taiwan, they view it as the culture demanded them to change and view it as sustenance.
Yeah. So the kind of because we're gonna have to wrap this up in a little bit. So I want to ask a couple more questions on that we wanted to ask. So in your opinion, and we'll go one at a time. In your opinion, what makes being multiracial a beautiful? And I'll start with Amos. What in your mind makes being, you know, the way you look and just being multiracial? What's a good thing about it? What makes it beautiful?
I think it is the proper way of going about multiculturalism. You tend to have an appreciation of different cultures, and you understand how you can actually compare them in a very objective manner. Whereas, sort of the multiculturalism that's coming out of a lot of, you know, the West, of Europe and stuff, is kind of just like for the sake of, you know, diversity for the sake of diversity.
Yeah.
In our case, I think we can appreciate and see like the best of both worlds, and also the worst of both worlds, and be able to like look at it the right way. I think that's a good thing for us.
Yeah, and then for Connor, I know that you're married and you have a kid that's mixed. So what's your opinion on that?
So I value seeing both cultures. Like when I first met my wife, I liked Korean culture a lot. It was interesting. There's a lot of things that I admired about it, but there's also things that I was like, you know what, that's not always the best. I think there's better ways they could go about it, especially like their education system here is so rigorous. Their suicide rate is off the charts.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But if they just adopted a little bit more of a, not necessarily laissez-faire fashion of education, but if they had a little bit more ways for students to de-stress. So that's one way that I've seen where it's like, I can appreciate both cultures and what they bring to the table. For my daughter and for my wife, I think the biggest struggle has been just understanding each other's different opinions and our cultures. And there's a lot of communication problems when it comes to that. But I've really come to appreciate the beauty of, like I said, true diversity, where I made the conscious effort to go and marry somebody who is of a different culture, and that was a beautiful thing. But I don't like this idea of forcing people together, and that's kind of where I've come across, is that every culture has something that you can take away from. That doesn't mean that they're all equal, but it just there's definitely good things that you can come from diversity and multiculturalism and all that stuff. There's definitely good things about it. I just think people go to extremes on both ends. So.
Yeah, for sure. So what about you, Forgotten Nationalist? What's your opinion on that?
Oh my gosh, you went all the way down to the other end. I thought I was like the last one. Okay,
No, you're the third person
on our
screen. Yeah, on our screen. So
Yeah, from my screen it's like I'm last, but okay. Well, you know, okay. Tell me again, what was the question?
What's beautiful about being?
Well, like, what's in your opinion, what's the good thing about being multiracial, and what's beautiful about being mixed and not being just one particular race?
Well, I would say that we, as we can advocate for either side.
Yeah.
And we don't have to, we don't have to like choose one side. I would never choose one side. I think that I am who I am. I would say that I am half white and half Asian. But I also think that I appreciate Western Civ, and I think that there's nothing wrong with a white majority, because since I was raised by my white half of my family, because my parents divorced when I was 9 and my dad had custody of me, I have great gratitude to my white side of my family.
Interesting. So what about you, Larson? What's your opinion?
I mean, honestly, I've really kind of come to realize that it's really about the individual. I mean, when I look back on it, being a Hapa or Eurasian has not really hindered me in any way. I mean, in my past, I was, I had some problems, but what was really holding me back was myself. And yeah, I can't really complain about being from my background at all.
Yeah, that's a good point. So about you, Pill Eater, what's your thoughts on that? My voice keeps tracking.
Well,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Voice. Yeah. She goes.
Yeah. No, go ahead, Pill Eater. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, all right. Well, first, I think the word multiracial is a misconception, because when you say multiracial, it assumes that there are 3 people in the relationship, and that includes something like there is a Mexican husband, a black wife, and an Indian son or something, and there's at least more 3 in the equation, like a triangle. I think the correct word would be biracial, meaning 2 people. Now, there could be a multiracial country. I mean, we're already seeing Brazil and some parts of California. But again, a multiracial country just means like a forced thing, and that only leads to one conclusion: the whole brown people Kalergi plant thing. And we already see, and if you're a proud multiculturalist, you would be for multiracialism. But we're talking this really precise thing that I strongly believe that needs to be talked about is biculturalism, meaning that there has to be 2 people in the equation. And if there's going to be white and Asian, well, that itself is a beautiful mix, and it deserves its own destiny and, shoe allegory of preferring with people like themselves. And that biculturalism will also put itself towards, an Afro-Asian thing, maybe in terms of it could get weird when it, there could be like something with, so some people say the Hispanic thing is bicultural, but again, you have to look into eugenics and racial differences, and, sounding like I'm some kind of human biodiversity nut. It's this ideal where people it's this post-libertarian ideal that people are better with people who they associate with. And I think this is kind of a step forward, where if you associate with, if you want to call it a Hapa supremacist state or Eurasian identity, then you're going to have to make institutions and philosophy and people and associations like that. And I think this is just probably a step forward.
Yeah, that's for sure. So Leaf, your thoughts on all this?
What? I'm sorry, I kind of zoned out for a bit.
The best things about being multiracial.
Yeah, being multiracial. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
I don't know. One of my favorite things is when someone that disagrees with me starts screeching about how much white privilege I have or something, and I just have to say, "Bitch, I'm
That's me too.
See, it's funny because imagine if you were half Asian and half black. It's like, well, what can they go after you for?
I just like it. I like using it as a gotcha type of thing.
Yeah.
When people try to come at me and say this, or you're just some privileged white girl, it's like, really now?
So they always go after your white side. They never go after the Asian side.
They assume that you're white.
Yeah.
They just assume that you're full white, and then when you tell them that you're mixed race, they just, I don't know. Sometimes they just kind of stop responding.
No.
Yeah,
they assume that you should be with the POC side. They assume that you should be part of the POC SJW.
Right.
Well, what I've noticed though for you guys is that they'll start attacking your fathers or your mothers, depending on which one's white.
Oh yeah.
They'll start attacking. So they won't attack you anymore because they can't, because you just debunked that argument. They'll start attacking your family.
Then I
parents.
drop on them and say my dad's dead.
Well, I've been told multiple times that my dad is a racist for marrying my mom. When they met in college, like, that's the most innocent way to meet someone, you know? It's like,
hey, guess what? I'm meeting you because I hate your race, so I'm gonna make a kid with you. Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Well, my dad's choice to go to Taiwan and meet my mom there was he was drunk at a party and he was deciding on being a foreign exchange student. It was either Germany or Taiwan. So I could have been German.
oh.
It's the alcohol's fault. It's all the alcohol.
Alcohol is racist. Alcohol is racist.
Bring back prohibition.
So we are gonna have to end this pretty soon. So the last question I want to ask each and one of you is if there's any advice that you want to tell someone who struggles with their biracial or just even multiracial identity, and just any advice you have for them. So we'll go with Leaf this time. I'll start with Leaf.
Do I have it? I don't even know if I have advice for people. I would just say, just don't care what people think. Don't take it seriously. I
love it. I love it. I love it. No one can top that. I love it. I love it. Don't give a fuck.
Well, now no one else.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying. All right. So, all right. Pill Eater, you go next.
I think, well, associating, I think it's a healthy thing to associate your identity background. That's one thing. But then again, there's identity politics. And depending if you fall under the whole SJW mold or the liberal egalitarian worldview of this free market globalism, that seems to be a reoccurring trend with people who are multiracial or even biracial, is that, well, if the world's not like me, I'm going to have to make it like me. And it becomes this whole nihilistic, hedonistic thing that goes nowhere. And that seems to be the biggest problem with identity crisis with people who are bi or multiracial. And so it's about finding, or at least being associating with people who are like yourself. And in today's digital age, there's the internet, and you can find people, and there's Google Hangouts and Discords, and it's certainly people can learn about themselves. But again, I think the best way is to be ethical about it, because there's way too many people playing the progressive stack game, and I understand that there's a lot of, unfortunately, white liberals that will progressive stack people who are biracial again, or if you're black, or affirmative action. So assumingly, I would say it's about become who you are naturally and create that institution for you without falling under the liberal paradigm.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So Larson, what's your advice?
Well, it's kind of similar to what Pillator said. Again, if you have problems with, you feel like nobody likes you because you're half Asian or whatever, maybe it's you suck as an individual. You have to improve yourself as an individual. And, take it from my own experience, your life will be so much better, and you're not going to have those racial resentments if, I keep going back to like the sexual frustration thing, but I really do think that is the only problem Asians have in the West. Like, if you're a man worth having, then, you are a man worth having, and it doesn't matter what race you are.
Yeah. So forgotten nationalist, it's your turn.
Hey, I already thought I said something.
About this question?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, I was one of the first to say something.
Well, this one is more of like, what advice would you give to like somebody who's struggling with like an identity crisis because they're mixed race or like?
Oh, okay, yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I
That's fine.
sorry. I went to the bathroom. Okay. I would say that you should not really necessarily like choose one or the other. I would say that you are both. And I mean, I guess this only applies to Hapas. I mean, you know, half Asian, half white. And you know, you just have to like you're both. You know, you don't have to choose other. Why? You know, whatever your circumstances. I mean, as long as you're on the conservative and nationalist side, I'm a nationalist. I'm a nationalist. I don't want globalism.
You don't want globalism, you know, the Mega France game, right? You don't want that stuff.
Well, it's pretty much the collective ideal where it's like, we know all the problem today. It's this egalitarian consumerism that degrades people into nihilism. People want something better and they want to make healthy lives. They just don't want to grow up being these mutts, you know? It makes people better.
Yes, and of course, Shane, we will protect the sexual purity of the frogs.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, okay, I'm going to go to Amos now. What's your advice?
Well, hold on for this one. Stop being such a little bitch. No, I'm saying Hapas in general. Hapas in general. I mean, from my limited experience with the Hapa Reddit thing, it's have a little self-awareness. Don't fall into a victim mentality, and just realize that you're you. Obviously, you know, understand your identity, that you have an identity. You have two, you know, identities that are sort of intersecting, if we were to use that, but that it's they don't dominate that. So I mean, be introspective, be self-aware, don't take yourself too seriously, because I think there's too much of this edginess. Everyone wants to be edgier than the other. Yeah. It's like I gotta have, you know, I'm edgy because I'm this, I'm edgy because I have that view, and it's always like more words, more views, more, you know. It's good to definitely be, you know, be well versed on issues and, you know about these topics, this identity politics. But I think it's just people there's like, it's like a two-sided thing. There's people that want to be very edgy and people that want to be more oppressed and more victimized with just adding on more and more things, you know. It's just, don't do that.
Yeah, victim status is definitely not the way to go.
Yeah, self-awareness, being able to understand that even though you feel like you could have like pretty good views, pretty reasonable views, don't take it too seriously. I mean, even as a libertarian, it's like, you know, yeah, I still hold my views, but I'm not going to take myself so seriously where I'll be like, you know, libertarian or death.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, Connor, I wanted to go to you last because you're married to a Korean and you have a Hapa kid. So I want to ask, as a white person, you know, what, or at least, you know, not half Asian, what your advice would be for, you know, for your daughter or just your children. Really.
The biggest advice I want to give my daughter, you can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, the biggest advice I want to give, not just to my daughter, but to anybody is, get your priorities of how you identify yourself straight first. Know who you are first. That means you have to explore both sides of you. Historically, your family's history, where they came from, what they've struggled with, both sides. what a lot of times people do is they get into this hierarchy kind of mentality where they're like, well, my Asian side or my white side or my black side or whatever it is, it has a higher victimhood status, so therefore I identify more with that, or vice versa. And really what you got to do is, I think ethnicity is important and race is important to an extent, but I think the most important thing is your ideals. Focus on what your ideals are and what you believe in first. So honestly, I think whether it's ideology or religion, get that squared away first. You're young, especially to young people. You're young. You have a lot of high schoolers they go through identity crisis. Don't let that inhibit you. Don't have an identity crisis. Discover who you are. There's a difference. A crisis means that you don't know how to handle it and you're stressed about it. Don't be stressed about it. Just discover who you are. After that, then you can start putting together what kind of people you want to associate yourself with. And I think that's the key there, is not letting others determine who you are. Let yourself and it's kind of what Larson said. You just got to have to be an individual, but at the same time, don't abandon one side over the other. You gotta really focus on both. And I think that's the thing that I'm going to be teaching my daughter, is to, don't discount one side over the other. Don't believe one side's better than the other. Just believe in yourself. And with that, I actually have to get going because my wife is calling. So
well, we're all going to be we're going to be handing the stream, so that kind of works out for us. So.
Yeah. Do you have any advice that you want to say before we go?
Well, I did just want to mention, like, I don't know about that part, but okay. I do want to mention that anyone who's watching, all of the links will be in the description below, everybody's Twitter profiles, because most of the people who I guess recruited for this stream were on Twitter. So their Twitter profiles will be below if you want
Except for Elise, but she'll probably be suspended or banned,
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I made a new account, but like...
Yeah.
I'll put her new account.
Banned.
Please add me.
And I don't know, even if you want, I could put your Facebook page, because you seem to be more popular on Facebook.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Facebook's more of my platform. I should be more active on there. I kind of have 15,000 followers that are kind of just like, where did Leaf go?
Yeah, I'll put both.
Thank you.
I gotta get off of Facebook.
Yeah, but I really want to thank everyone who was on here, including Connor and Pat, who had to leave early. We'll definitely have to do this again.
Yeah,
and this was probably, to be honest, this was probably the most fun I had doing a live stream.
Yeah, this is the most productive live stream that we've ever had.
Yeah, for sure. So this was a lot of fun. Thank you so much, everybody who was part of the stream and everyone who watched us. We actually, I think we had the most viewers of any stream that we've done. So thank you so much for that. Please subscribe to our channel. Please support us on Maker Support. We're going to be making a Patreon. We're going to be making a Steam very soon. So please support us. We're going to be making some more content. We're doing our best.
And definitely check us out on Twitter and everybody else who was on the stream, because I know that all of us had pretty good hot takes on there. So
yeah, so
that'll be fun.
Yeah, so thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you all soon. Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
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 Bye.